sure you like and subscribe.
Months ago, the Pope stated that wasting food is like stealing from the poor, which made many people question, if wasting food is like stealing from the poor, then is keeping food like giving to the rich? Because of this theory, 2 homeless men are now in protest, stating that they refuse to support the rich, while they're the ones in need of food. How are they protesting, you may ask? By throwing away the exact same food that's being donated to them. We took some time to get the thoughts of 2 hobos, Sherman B. Little and a man that went by a series of numbers we're still trying to decode.
I've been working too goddamn hard for these people coming here thinking they're gonna give me some food.
All meals get thrown away. I'm gonna poop it out anyway, so it save me the work.
Shit!
You know, it ain't even that bad being out here, it's less stressful, and now that I don't need to eat, it's definitely less stressful.
We don't support the rich.
Not never gone. Not never gone.
We never.
Not never.
I got 3 reasons why I don't like rich people. Number 1, they got too much damn money.
Mayhem Radio.
DT, yeah, we act out. You don't know what that about. Durag different colors, black, red, white, crack house. Durag with the flap out. 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 DT, yeah, we act out. You don't know what that about. Durag different colors, black, red, white, crack house. Durag with the flap out. Durag with the flap out. Durag with the flap out. Durag with the flap out.
I be going in with my flap out. I be going in even when I back out. No skull cap when I rap the crap on rappers that don't got they do-rag flap out.
Red,
yellow, purple, green, blue, orange, black, lean. When I got my do-rag on, I be feeling real clean. When my do-rag, when I'm taking a nap, even got an iPhone do-rag app. But don't ever think I'ma be rolling my flap, cause everyone knows my flap, watching my back. Ooh, this that do-rag with the flap out song. And we getting in that booty like a do-rag flap out song.
Mayhem Radio. Check out this clip.
As for the opposing side, we sat down with 2 entrepreneurs, Wells B. Fargo and Dow Jones, owners of Fargo Jones Adult Video Distribution Company in LA.
you see, we're for the people, but it just seems like the people aren't for us.
We look like everyone else. Look at the way we're dressed.
Come on now.
Everyone dresses like this.
Come on now. $1,000. Well, what's this? What's it like? 10 G's?
I think that's fake.
That's not the fake. That's the fake one. They over here talking about they don't want to support us when we're the main ones helping the community. Tell them how we help.
We've been helping for years. We have a charity called Porn for Torn to help out homeless, torn-apart families. You got charities for everything but the rich.
For everything but the rich.
Toys for tots.
Toys.
Well, I ain't no charities for the rich. I need support.
Let's start our own foundation, the rich for the itch. You know
The rich
what I'm saying?
for the itch.
And somebody need to scratch it. People be living.
So how is this actually affecting you guys?
Mayhem Radio.
Goddamn, Mike, goddamn.
Talked to my mama the other day.
cap.
I said there's some bills that she gotta
No
pay.
cap.
Boy, I'ma kick your ass
No
out
cap.
to the left like Beyonce.
No cap.
Talked to my girlfriend the other day.
cap.
She said that it look like I'm getting
No
paid.
cap.
I told her it look like I'm getting paid.
Yeah, just rap.
I jump up on the track and find a pocket or two.
No
I'm
cap.
going in harder, and that's a rocket or two. Dressed real sick, it seems like a pocket of flu.
No
Got
cap.
your girl wet and sticky like I'm mopping up glue.
That's Elmer's.
No cap like Lincoln assassinated.
Yep.
No sense like it's super exasperated.
Whoa.
Her yams going ham like a pack of bacon.
Whoa.
Got it lit, take a look at the match. Little bitch. Got it lit, take a look at the match. Little bitch. Got it lit, take a look at the match. Little bitch. Got it lit, take a look at the match. Little bitch.
Goddamn, Mike, goddamn.
Talk to my mama, no cap. I'm a baby, now we got drama. No cap. Is that baby mama drama? Hold up, pause, comma, wait. Me and my mama got beef. Chuck, rib, round, flank, wait. More like brisket. Short plate, long shank.
Whoa. Talked to my mama the other day.
cap.
I said there's some bills that she gotta
No
pay.
cap.
Boy, I'ma kick your ass
No
out
cap.
to the left like Beyonce.
No cap.
Talked to my girlfriend the other
No
day.
cap.
She said that it look like I'm getting
No
away.
cap.
I told her it look like I'm getting paid.
Yeah, just rap.
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Yeah.
Why am I not a baller?
Okay.
Cooler than sipping on ice water. If she freaking, I might call her. My squad, all that.
No cap.
My skin all black.
No cap.
Big balls, no cap.
No cap.
So you can capitalize
It's
that.
been a minute since I had my funds together. I need to get my funds together. I've been able to do anything. It's because I'm broke. I have no money. I can't go nowhere. I have no money. Trying to get a little handy, but it's money I'm broke. I ain't got no money. Is anybody out there who has more money? Can you come please? Roll me.
Mayhem Radio.
Talked to my mama the other day. I said it's some bills that she gotta pay. Boy, I'ma kick your ass out. To the left, like Beyonce. Talked to my girlfriend the other day. She said that it looked like I'm getting away. I told her it looked like I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
It's Mayhem Hour. Comedy, conspiracies, and all that shit.
Hey guys, before we get started, I want to shout out to our newest sponsor, and I did record this ad a couple weeks back, so forgive me, but our newest sponsor, Bad Boy Entertainment. We want to be able to give Mace, the Locks, and of course P. Diddy his flowers. Now I don't know what's to come in the future, but I think 2024 has a lot in store for Bad Boy Entertainment with its growing new ventures and new deals popping up everywhere. I'm sure we have a lot to look forward to. So one time, thank you for sponsoring this episode. Bad Boy Entertainment forever.
Hey y'all, I'm Melissa. I just wanted you to know that Mayhem Hour is coming up next. And so is the end of the world. Enjoy.
Wagwan, everybody. We in here. Welcome one all to the Mayhem Hour, your late night show here on the Comedy Trap House. Your late night show here on the Comedy Trap House. Yes, Friday night, 7:30. We getting started a little later because, you know, it's getting darker later, so we got to make adjustments. What's up, Antonio Nobody? Jay Living, Kim, I see you in here. Yes indeed. Hope everybody's about to have a good weekend. About to kick it off right. Roy. Here we go. Miss Donaldson? Miss Donaldson? I don't even know how to say your last name right. What's up? What's up, mama? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight I am coming with an interview. I've interviewed somebody whose material I have become very interested in over the last couple. What's good, Kendrick? Over the last couple of weeks, a guy by the name of his YouTube channel is UnderstandingConspiracy. Paul, good brother Paul, over in the UK, has came up with conspiracy that the Nephilim, former giants of the distant past, that they once looked like clowns. That the Nephilim look like clowns if you know anything about it. So we're going to get a little biblical tonight with this one, but I think this is highly, highly interesting because I think he has some amazing points on the topic. If you look into it, you're going to start questioning, should I take part in Halloween anymore? Women are going to start saying, do I really need a man that's over 6'7"? Because what if he's a giant? What if he's a former son of an angel, demon?
I'm gonna have you question a lot with this. It was a great conversation. It's a lot to it, but we're gonna get into it. But before we get into that, I think there is something so funny that has hit the internet that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. I haven't. Yes, look, Drake is yet to respond to Kendrick. J. Cole has bowed out and said it's over for him. He gonna go put his feet up. He bikes, so maybe he's having some carpal tunnel issue. He need to put his feet up. Carpal tunnel? No, that would be the toe version. You know what I mean? The toe version. He probably Mendez in here. Oh, I see him. Yo, what up, brother? I see him. You name 10 girlfriends, man. Mendez always likes to give away his polygamous lifestyle. What's up, brother? But very interesting stuff. Anyway, Kendrick, we're still waiting for that to happen. We're still waiting for that. Somebody said athlete's foot. What up, MMM? We're still waiting for the beef to continue, and nothing. This is nothing. Okay, we got J. Cole took a loss in points right now. He got to go put his feet up. And now we're waiting for Drake to come off his Dubois. He sits on the Dubois. Okay? I'm sure he has something in his house that's called a Dubois he sits on. Before we get into that though, the Nephilim stuff, there's something that's hit the internet. How long ago was this? This hit the internet 13 days ago. And this goes beyond Diddy. By the way, FBI still hasn't brought any evidence. I don't know what the hell's going on there. This goes beyond anything that we've talked about. Ladies and gentlemen, Terrence Howard is incredible. Terrence Howard is an incredible human being, and we have to realize that we have something special living within our generation. Every once in a while, there's someone that steps on the face of the earth that changes the game like no other, okay? Whether it's Jordan on the basketball court, whether it's King David with the slingshot, I don't have another good joke. Point is, this man here is to be remembered. And I hope you understand that from what I'm about to present to you right now. Please. I need all of you to pay close attention to the opening of this video. Okay? I need all of you to pay very close attention to the opening of this video.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Daphne Panini. I am so excited to give you another exclusive one-on-one interview with the one and only Terrence D. Howard. I didn't say the whole middle name.
I like it though.
I like it though.
Deshaun. I like Deshaun too.
Mama gave me Deshaun.
She did. That's awesome.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
I was on a little bus.
Not the short one. Though.
I was on a short bus.
Not the short little.
Yeah,
he about to say.
Second grade.
Is this supposed to blow our mind that he was on the short bus?
Wow, that's the prettiest color blue I've ever heard. And the teacher was like, "You can't, colors don't have." So I was like, "Yes, they do." It's like, "No, they don't." And
Terrence Howard looks like his name should be Barbara Walters right here. Oh my God. And the funny shit is, does he know what he's doing? Because he has to, right? I mean, he ain't like, see, when women go crazy, it usually starts with some type of disaster. Okay, they set the house on fire, whether you're, what's girl's name from TLC? Which one? Was she the T, the L, or the C? The one that burned the house down. She either you gonna burn the house down, divorce the man, take all his money, stop having sex with him. Anything that causes destruction, you'll cause it. For a man's crazy though, if he's not, shooting up places. Let's take that part out of it. It's wearing a wig is your insanity. And this is fun. People, this is fun. It is fun seeing him lose his mind. I think it is so fun to see him lose his mind. And it's okay. It's okay. We don't need Charlemagne coming around talking about mental health. Yeah, it's fine. The 90s was a better time, and people were completely insane. And it was fun. We laughed at it just like this. This is great. And I hope it continues. I hope it works out for him for the best.
And they ended up sending me to a remedial school for about a year. And I was just like, nah. The people that were there were so incredible, the kids, because they saw things differently.
Right.
But what it turned out is...
What are the quotables from this? Let me see if they had a... Let me see. Did she put out a short? Okay.
Most people want to hear a couple things about what you're doing with the wig. While we're here, we're on set.
This ain't no wig.
In Atlanta. That's your hair.
Oh, look how
That's what your
This Cadillac Richie's hair. This Cadillac.
That's exactly what I was thinking, right?
Yeah, no, we're doing a film, and I thank you guys for coming here to set.
Thank you for having us.
Taking the time. It's me, it's Kevin Hart, Don Cheadle, Sam Jackson.
So this is
myself,
characters here.
and a number of incredible actors, but we're doing a
Don't get it twisted. He's still insane.
thing called Fight Night, and it's the night that Muhammad Ali fought Jerry Quarry, and there's a little robbery that takes place.
There's a little robbery.
Just
Who's on the robbery side?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh man, I don't know, man. You know, most of the time when I talk to people, my voice likes to shiver. Come on, man. Most of the time when Terrence Howard, my voice likes to shiver from time to time when I'm speaking. Y'all know, Terrence, I'm a Oscar nominated. I quit Iron Man. I quit Iron Man and I became even more powerful than Robert Downey himself through my hit TV show, Empire. I'm the one that ended up paying Taraji less than everybody else because I am Terrence Howard, Empire Howard. I am Terrence Howard, Empire Howard. I should have been on this face while we... I just look.
Welcome to Straight Talk.
Look at this little smile right there.
I am so...
Look at this little smile right there.
Oh man, come on, man. You already know how I do. I'm Terrence Howard. Man.
Him and Boosie got the same throat issues.
Man, I'm trying to tell you, man. I don't like gay people, man. Fuck no, Vlad. Come on, man. Come on, man.
Terrence Howard, just a slower version of Boosie.
Come on, man. Come on, man.
It's the same shit.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man.
You could put Terrence Howard and Bootsy interchangeable in any movie. It'll be the same nigga.
Come on, man. Come on, man. Don't cut the boy dick off like that, man. Come on, man. Don't cut the dick off, boy, like that, man. Don't cut the boy dick off like that, man.
It's the same. Shout out to Boosie Howard. Shout out to Boosie Howard. He's lost his marbles. Shout out. We know him better now. He's doing this for a movie role. They got me talking like them now. They got me talking like them because I ran out of breath. We got to stop smoking, y'all. I ran out of breath. Come on, man. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go into it tonight. Like I said, I had an interview earlier in the day. And from my man Paul from Understanding Conspiracy, and he kind of broke down this whole thing about Popo in the building. What's good? D Nix in the building. What's good? I see y'all. Come on, man. Took y'all forever to get in here, man. Come on, man. Boosie and Terrence Howard got the same voice we learned in the last 10 minutes. Boosie and Terrence Howard have the maybe even what's his name? What's the old man? Samuel L. Jackson's grandfather. Damn, what's his name? I don't know. I'm losing it. I'm losing my marbles. All right, so here we go. Ladies and gentlemen. Again, tonight I've dove into this. I've been watching this guy online for a little bit, and he's come up with a conspiracy. I think a very legitimate conspiracy with a lot of facts that he's dug up and researched and found some very interesting stuff about Nephilim, man. This is an episode where we're diving deep into it, okay? And he's gonna be pulling in the first, I think by the 30-minute half, he starts pulling up pictures to give you guys a little more context about the what these things look like, what he's comparing them to, and some of the things he's researched. So I'm gonna start playing it, and you guys enjoy this. Here we go. All right, let's do this.
Yeah, we all good? Excellent, let's do it then.
Good, yeah. Thank you for joining the Mayhem Hour, Paul. I appreciate you. I've been heavily into what you've been doing and all your content online. I think you have an amazing, I want to say conspiracy, but there's a lot to it that kind of leans toward, I guess, truth and you know, there's a lot of backing to it. And I kind of want to, if you don't mind, I kind of want to start at the beginning. There's two ideas here. One is that the Nephilim look like clowns, which is your original theory. And we also have the millennial reign situation, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But I think I want to dive more into, just for the sake of time, stick with the Nephilim look like clowns. Okay. And if you don't mind, take us back to the beginning, all the way to when the earth started, angels, watchers. Let's start there and kind of see if we could get people into understanding this idea.
Yeah, sure. So it's hard to know where to begin with this. I've done it thousands of times, and it still never gets any easier to explain this. By nature, and the kind of work I've been swimming in for over a decade is highly seeped in esoteric, biblical, strange theologies and ideas and mysticisms and mythologies, and within that realm of research, I have carved out for myself this strange niche within the already strange niche of conspiracy, which is these things people talk about, which are the Nephilim, which are ancient giants of a pre-flood and post-flood world from a biblical narrative. I have discovered that they would have had a very certain aesthetic about them, which I've gone through on my series on my channel to prove through the artwork that's available and through the cultures around the world who still venerate these things in the forms of ancestor spirits. They dress like them.
Right.
And what I've discovered is that these things actually had a very psychedelic, terrifying look to them, which involved very wide grins with sharp fanged teeth, like a serpent mouth that opens very wide, so a jester-like mouth, very big glowing eyes, wild red hair, extremely pale white, vampiric white skin. It's not like a Northern England white boy like me. I'm talking like, white,
right,
like deathly white, and
Colgate.
yeah, exactly, Colgate white. So, but by that standard, that is the base of a clown I've just described there, and what I went on to discover after first getting onto this idea, after a lot of research and a lot of study and a few tips and hints along the way, I kind of also discovered what we call the clown in the West is indeed our version of these same costumes worn by these ancient cultures around the world for the purpose of channeling these spirits. There's this rule that's very well known among most of these ancestor spirit cultures and clown societies. They're actually called clown societies, funnily enough.
Right.
That's what anthropologists have always named them. But they actually dress a certain way in order to be possessed by spirits. So they dress like the thing to be possessed by the thing. So it's a form of spirit communication. It's a standard tool actually in most shamanistic practices. To dress like something is to mirror something in the spirit realm to attract it towards you. And what the
So
clown
when you
is.
say ancestor worship, this isn't like just a regional thing. This is everywhere. Every society has some type of ancestor worship. And if I could just I have a personal anecdote where I'm half Ethiopian and half Caribbean, which is St. Croix to be exact, the Virgin Islands. And when I was a kid, about 5 years old or so, my dad took me. We went to the islands. We went there, and you might have heard of it. They have Carnival. Carnival is a big thing. They have that in Brazil, different Caribbean islands and stuff. And people dance. They put on costumes and all these type of things. And one of the things they have in the Virgin Islands is this character that's on stilts. Big long stilts. They dress up in wild colors and all these things, and they call them Mokojumbi. Okay, Mokojumbi. And I remember during the festival, we're walking down the street. One of these things comes to me, and I'm scared to death. I remember screaming for my mom and just I don't want to be anywhere near this thing. And it was horrific to me. And I look at it now, okay, it's just silly. But when I think about it, where do these things come from? And, I started postulating that a while back, but coming across your videos, it really made me think all these things, they derive from these places. They do derive of a place of worshiping something else that we may think is one thing now. You may think it's ancestors, but it seems to, unless we have 12-foot ancestors, I don't know. So, but continue. I'm sorry to cut.
No, absolutely. And what you're discussing there, in the Caribbean, you have these ideas of Carnival, which kind of European cultures and Christian ideas of fasting periods and a party before a fast. A lot of Italian Carnival is quite a famous one as well, with the Venetian masks. So what you get in the Caribbean, there's like a mix between this European influence with African ancestor spirit worship cultures as well. And there's many countries in Africa, all with their own flavor of this. So don't get me wrong, but there's different ways they all kind of do this. But the stilts is actually very common in Africa, and especially in I think the Dogon cultures of Africa, which are a very isolated tribe that kind of got dominated by Islam, I believe, in Africa. But they still remained with their ancient culture, and they kind of, I think it's because they were in such an obscure place in Africa, which was hard to invade, that they kind of, you can still see an example of this very old belief system. And walking on stilts is a part of their ancestor spirit worship dances and rituals, which actually go on for months, the specific rituals. And yes, they wear bright pink, flailing colored things, a lot like the Carnival people wear with the feathered dresses and everything like that in Brazil, for example, as well as another famous example in Rio. So yeah, these are.
Do you think the twerking's a part of it? Is
What's that,
twerking
sorry?
a part? You think twerking is part of ancestor worship? Oh my God, it's everywhere.
Maybe, who knows where these things come from, but the ritualistic dance of any kind seems to have its roots in a very, very tribal form of veneration of something bigger than themselves. But like I said, when I say ancestors, and as you were explaining there, alluding to, these are not your aunties and uncles I'm talking about here. That's just our English word we have to describe what they're talking about. And we use this word ancestor, which to us as English speaking people has certain connotations. We think that means our lineages of our own bloodlines going back just a few centuries. But to these people, what they mean by their version of the word ancestor is not lineages of humans. They mean very ancient, basic beginning creator gods who made their civilization and cultures. They're talking about the builders and the foundations of their belief. That's who they're going to. They're going back to these spirits, guides, and gods of some kind. And it's usually transactional in a lot of these cultures who do dress this way and use this as a tool. They get something from it. So they allow the thing in, they offer it a sacrifice, usually eating or drinking something specific. Haitian voodoo is a great example of this. And that's a strange blend, again, of African ancestor spirit worship and the Guide pantheons. Papa Legba comes from an African specific tribe as well. And it's kind of it's mashed together with Freemasonic symbolism. The sigils they draw are all Freemasonic with a square and compass, and they dress like a Freemason Grand Worshipful Master with the top hat and the cane. But it also has that strange blend of Catholic icon worship mixed in with it as well. So it's like a blend of three odd belief systems all slapped together into this Haitian voodoo, they called it, which is then spread out into certain parts of America as voodoo, but voodoo is the basic form. But that's what they do. They dress like Papa Legba with the white face makeup and the top hats, and and then basically once they've been taking it in and take the spirit of this god within them, they drink rum and smoke cigars because that's what the god wants. It's not because they enjoy doing it themselves. And they even claim they black out. They don't remember doing anything. The spirit's got them,
it's because the spirit is living through them. It's completely taking over their body.
Exactly, and it's in their senses. It's using their fingers, their taste buds, their ears, their nose, their eyes to experience the world, because these entities, which we call demons, don't have bodies. And this is where I can get into the history of the Nephilim now, and where we can go on to get into these cultures, so on. So the Nephilim it's a word based in two root words, which is Nephil and Nephal in Paleo Hebrew. So Nephil and Nephal basically translates to so the fall is to fall in any capacity. It can mean a tree feller or a feller or falling over or fallen in nature of some kind. Any way of applying the word fall in any capacity, Nephal can fit into that spot. And so that's one root word where we get Nephilim from, Nephal. And then there's Nephil as well, which literally means tyrannical giant ruler. Okay. That's literally what it means. So slap those two words together, you get Nephilim, which is the plural word for tyrannical giant rulers of a fallen type nature. So that's Nephilim as a descriptor. So it's described in the book of Genesis as there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, after the sons of God came into the daughters of men and bore offspring, the same men became heroes of old, mighty men, men of renown. And then it kind of skips on from then and starts going on to talk about Noah and the flood. Right. And it's odd. It kind of breezes past this thing in Genesis, and it's just one paragraph you kind of get explaining that something weird happened and giants were created that were venerated as gods for a season, and then it goes on to explain the flood. And there's a link there, and I think Michael Heiser explained it as if it stands out and it's odd, it's probably important. Okay, so we should look into that more. Right. And the only kind of things we can find that expound upon this are extra canonical books. So the book of Enoch is where we have to go to find the story Genesis 6 is referring to. Because it's kind of written Genesis and the whole Torah, the early Old Testament, that big thick book that we call the Old Testament, is a very specific story that's trying to specifically tell the story of a particular bloodline. So it's all about dates and names and when they were born, who begat who and whose son was who and who created what nations. It's like a list of lineages and then rules when it gets down to Moses. And it's kind of like a God forming a peoples for himself to call his own in order to bring himself into the world. And it's all precursors to the New Testament, which is the Savior, which is the coming of Jesus Christ. That's all kind of what it's leading to save Adam, the promise to Adam that he will redeem him from his fallen state, because there's a war going on. So we talk about the rebellion of the angels. Okay, everyone knows about the fall of Lucifer. This seemed to happen around the same time these giants ended up being created. And when Adam got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and it seems like there's this long period of time before the flood where everything just got really, really, really messed up on the earth. And we're like talking the worst possible time to ever be alive. We think we have it bad now. This is worlds apart from how bad things can actually get if we allow them to. And this is obviously what
we're talking like Lord of the Rings type of stuff that's going on back then, essentially.
We're talking like flesh-eating giant monster chimera hybrid snake being things just tearing people apart and drinking the blood and sacrificing the children and just monstrous, horrible things. Genetic engineering, the mixing and blending of flesh to create monsters. It was just chaos, absolute chaos.
I've been to frat parties that are worse, bro.
Oh yeah, maybe, maybe. But this was one long frat party. Let's put it that way. That had no hope of ending until God's mercy was given to us, and Noah was set apart as the only person left uncorrupted. Basically, he's described as being perfect in his generations. That's not just being a really good guy who kept all the laws. It is that. It's also he's uncorrupted. He hasn't messed with his DNA. He's still human as God intended from Adam. Okay, but everyone else, that's not what is explained in these other books, which are outside of the main canon, but extra canonical. We call them more pseudepigraphical or apocryphal. Many names you can give these books, but the Book of Enoch is actually still a part of the canon of the Ethiopian Bible, which is so we can take it as, and it is actually referenced quite a few times in the Old Testament and the New Testament. It does seem like the Book of Enoch is well known even to the apostles and to the people who were writing these other books. You know,
and correct me if I'm wrong. Was that found in the Dead Sea Scrolls? Was that a part of the Dead Sea Scrolls?
It was discovered in, I think, 1947, I think it was, around that time. Funnily enough, around the same time period, Israel was being established as a nation. So there's a lot of stuff go around the discovery of this, which is quite odd. And I'm not saying I trust that the new nation of Israel is necessarily the real people of God, which is described in the Torah. There's a load. I'm a conspiracy theorist, so I can go on for hours about that, but we're not going to get into that today. Okay.
No
yes,
heifers today.
It may none of that today, but it was actually discovered in the Qumran caves in the same region with the Dead Sea Scrolls and many other books as well. And it was kind of a part of a collection that was discovered.
Yeah.
But when you actually read it and read all the translations, it does give a lot of insight into that Genesis 6 verse about sons of God coming down and taking wives of human women and creating giants. So it basically just tells you that story of how that happened. And as it's described, is there's this group of angels called the Watchers, and it's kind of explained that they chose to come to Earth, a lot of them with good intentions, to watch over humanity and make sure they stay righteous and understand God and stay connected to the way He wants them to live. But the leader, Samyaza and Azazel, there's arguments whether they're the same angel, just by a different name, or they're two separate angels, but are both corrupted and working together as leaders of these 200 angels that came down to Mount Hermon. It seems like Samyaza was fully on board when he came down to completely mess everything up. He was in rebellion. And don't forget, Lucifer was also in rebellion against God at this time. Satan, many names you can go by. Beelzebub is another name. But either way...
It's never that Shemyaza gets confused with Lucifer either? I've always thought that maybe they could have been one and the same too.
A lot of people, it's blurry. It's very blurry. It really
Either way,
is.
they can make the ultimate Marvel villain. I'll tell you that right now. That name sounds crazy, but
I think it's either Samyaza or Azazel, which translates to he who hangs on Orion's belt or something. It's really odd, but angels are often associated with stars as well, and even Beelzebub is associated with Venus, and so is Lucifer, the bright and shining morning star, which is Venus, the brightest star in the sky, next to the sun and the moon. Obviously, it's the third brightest body. So people obviously equate angels with stars. You can get into the semantics of all that and the details, but the story goes that the leader of these Watchers came down and convinced the rest to take wives of the beautiful humans that were around, of the women. They kind of came down in the flesh to teach humanity righteousness, but then succumbed to the the pleasures of the flesh. Basically, they got corrupted themselves in a way, and they gave in to those urges that otherwise angels wouldn't have. But I think it's by a nature of coming down to the earth and living with us, it gets to you, it gets into you, and you can't live embodied without having to suffer what we humans have to suffer all the time, which is lust and pride and envy and greed and all the rest of the emotions that come with just being in a body in general, in such a dense physical sense. But it seems like they took wives and they gave into their urges, and these wives gave them children, which were Nephilim, half human, half angel hybrids. Now, this is, by the way, this is massively contested by most churches. Like, they will not entertain this idea. The most common mainstream view is that the sons of God described in Genesis 6 are just really good humans from the lineage of Seth. And they mated with the daughters of men, which were the bad human lineages from the bad side of Cain. And the good people having sex with the bad people somehow created giants. But that was just a metaphoric way of describing mighty men who were just really famous. Okay. Right. Now, I think that's a cop-out, because sons of God is applied everywhere else in the Bible to describe specifically the angels. Okay, so just in that one verse, we're just going to say it's not the case. It's just outrageous. And as far as I'm aware, two humans having sex with each other does not create giants in any sense. And
Shaq, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but it depends what you want to define as giant. But yeah, right. these things were like 50 foot tall, 100 foot tall. These things got way out of hand.
Right.
And in the Book of Enoch, it says, that these giants were worshipped as gods originally, as mighty men, as something else, because they were just divine. They were half angel, half human. That's nuts. These things were glowing. They looked insane. They were powerful. They had powers, way beyond the human comprehension. And they kept growing, is what we're told. And it says humanity could no longer sustain them, because they just kept eating and eating everything, all the grain, everything, all the stores of food they had. And it says eventually they turned against the humans and started eating each other and the people. So it just got way out of hand. It just got bloody and messy, and cults were created to venerate these things. They were worshipped as gods, demigods, and they very quickly got themselves into positions of rulership over all of humanity as the kings as well. And it seems like this was the plan all along from the angels that did this, or at least Samyaza convincing the angels to do this. Because at the same time, there was a human rebellion happening as well as this angelic rebellion. Cain was in rebellion against God. So Cain, after Adam and Eve were tempted by the serpent, as it's described, and tricked into partaking of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, whatever that means, but they were they got the raw end of the deal, and then ended up being tricked into believing that there was more for them if they were to do this thing that God told them not to do, not realizing they already had everything that God could possibly give them. They walked with him and talked with him in the Garden of Eden. What more do you want, But they kind of were convinced there is more, but they ended up in a lesser state as a result of it and banished from the garden. And it says, she bore Cain, had a son called Cain, and then had Seth. Those two brothers, loggerheads. Cain jealous of Seth and God taking his sacrifice over his. So Cain kills Abel. And then obviously they mourn, banish Cain out. And it says then, this is where you get another one of these odd little descriptions that doesn't really get expounded upon, and you're supposed to just
time,
yeah, you're supposed to just take it for its word. But it says Cain went to the land of Nod, which is clearly an established place with a name. Who named it, if Adam and Eve are the only two people and there's no other humans about. He says he took a wife. From who did he take a wife? Exactly. Right. And then he had his first son called Enoch, and he built a city. So who built the city? Because you need manpower to build cities. Who populated the city? Because cities aren't just made for one person. And then he named that city Enoch. And it seems like from then on, Cain was in this mode of being a city builder. Expansionist. He expanded his power by dominating the land, destroying the area, and conforming it to his shape and will. So he had some knowledge. This guy could build cities. He understood geometry perfectly, how to work architecture, because his father, Adam, walked with God and probably knew a thing or two. And this is how it's described in most researchers' work as the 7 sacred sciences. Adam was taught a lot of knowledge from God about how the universe works, and he taught that to his children, and they carry on to their children's children. But because of this split of rebellion and jealousy and pride and anger against God, because like you've rejected me, you've banished me out into the world, you put a mark on me so no one will kill me, and he essentially made him like an immortal god who had to suffer alone, and people would know you killed your brother type of thing in a world full of people who would murder him. It's like, who was he scared
like a
of?
vampire. He became
It became something. There's a lot of books that kind of theorize on what the mark was exactly, but he said to God, "Don't send me out there. They're going to kill me. You can't do this." And God said, "No, they won't, because I'm going to put a mark on you, and this mark will tell anybody if they touch you, the punishment on them will be 7 times worse." Okay, so it's kind of, he marked them so no one, to honor his wish that no one would kill him, you know. But who was he scared of exactly? Because we're told is only Adam and Eve, and again, this is another extremely contentious thing I'm about to say here. But there is a lot of precedence when you actually get into the conspiratorial side and get out of the church dogma, you know, the 501c3 dogma, and actually go out there and read these books for yourself and study. It's possible there was people around before Adam and Eve. God created man and woman, plural, and said to them, "Go out, be fruitful, and multiply, and subdue the earth." And man and woman did go off and do that. So he probably created many men and women, and they all populated the earth and took over. And then he goes on to say, God created Adam, and then put Adam in a garden. That's a different story. Completely different story.
He placed them there, right? It wasn't
basically,
like made him there. He placed him there.
It seems like he, after making all of mankind, he goes on to the next chapter and says, then he made Adam. And then it's like Adam was set apart. And it's like, basically, he said, I made him in my image to teach him everything so he could be the king over the earth that he's created for his creation, which is humanity. Now, this is where the rebellion comes in from the angels. The angels didn't like this. They did not like what they saw, because the angels were like a serpentine class, animalistic type race that were all kind of separate from the humans, and clearly so. They were made in God's image. The angels weren't. So I think they were getting jealous. I think they started to actually literally get jealous of Adam, because Adam was given the honor of naming all the animals. The angels have been there since the beginning of creation, before man. Why does this thing get to name the animals? Why don't we? You know, and I think that's where the jealousy and pride began to ferment, at least in Lucifer's heart, in Satan's heart, because he was seen as like God's most beloved, closest angel, and he was getting jealous of Adam, basically. And there's a lot of speculation here too, but it does seem like it's possible the serpent in the garden isn't Satan. It was actually a race of serpentine humanoid people who were also walking around at the same time, even in the Garden of Eden. And that's why the serpent could just easily approach Eve, and she had no beef about it, or wasn't freaked out, because she's probably talked to these things thousands of times and lived with them for God knows how long. We don't even know how long they were in the garden before they got cast out. It could have been lifetimes, you know.
Right.
But it seems odd that this talking snake thing, as we're described as serpent, comes up to her and starts saying, "Oh, did God say you couldn't have from that tree?" No, I think he was having you on. He's only saying that because he knows if you do take that, you'll be like him. And he doesn't want you to be like, he wants to keep you down, you know, he wants to keep you stupid, he wants to be not like a god. Your eyes will be opened if you eat, and you'll know more that he doesn't want you to know, you know. And she was listening. It's like, why wouldn't she trust? Why would she have any reason to doubt this thing? And I think from what I've deducted is this is an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. I think the seraphim dragon class angels who are closest to God, who go around his throne singing, "Holy, holy, holy," you know, these are the ones that are right next to God's ear. Well, seraphim literally means fiery flying serpents. These are dragons. These are fire-breathing, giant, think China-style dragons on temples. These are the gods. These are the angels, you know.
And I think anybody of my audience that thinks like angels, because we're always given since we're kids that angels are these sweet, either baby creatures, the cherubs that are flying with little wings, or these beautiful, you know, Giselle Bundchen looking angels, you know. But if you type in real angels, or the description that the Bible gives you and other biblical texts give you, you would see the wildest things. You would see, I mean, these wheels with eyes on it and shining brightly. And when you think about it, a lot of people talk about, you know, that even what you're saying now with these Nephilim being very, the fractal patterns and all this, it's very trippy. They're trippy. You know what I mean? the divine, it's very possible that the divine is trippy in nature. Like it's kind of like it's very surreal, and the creatures that come from God that he created are more fantastical than we can even imagine. So
Oh yeah, the Ezekiel's vision is the best example we have of a glimpse into the thrones of God and heaven, and literally the thrones are a type of angel, you know,
right.
And they have like and you have these things with huge wings that hold up the firmaments that are literally a part of creation. They are the pillars of the foundation of our world and our universe, you know.
Right.
And angels have an intricate relationship with creation itself. They're like the cogs that make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't the creators of reality, but they're like a piece of the machinery of reality. Angels play a role, and it gives credence to this new age concept that everything is alive. Literally everything has a consciousness. Like it's made up of these beings we call angels, you know, and they all have different roles in the hierarchy, and some of them are more free to do what they want. But like the ones that hold up the firmament, they can't move. They're there forever, you know. Then you have the chariots with the wheels, like I said, wheels within wheels, just surrounded with eyes. Then you have the living creatures, which have like 4 heads of different animals, and just wild anamorphic creations of different experimental forms and types, you know, and they can shape shift and manifest on the earth through things called oikotarians in any form they want. They're both physical and spiritual at the same time. It's like a sleeve to them. They can jump in and out of it. This is where you get Hindu.
Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
This is where you get the idea about Hindu avatars is a great way of showing this. You know, like you have the 3 main gods, which then manifest in different avatars as many variety of gods below them. And it's kind of, this is angel play, you know, and angels, like I said, the seraphim seem to be like a specific class of angel who were closest to God, who were dragons, basically. That's their form, you know, even China's rife with dragon mythology being involved with working with the Jade Emperor, who is their analogy for God, you know, and they're like water elements and fire elements, and they're like involved with certain parts of creation, like the sea or the volcanoes or something, like, and they're kind of stuck there. And there's this famous story of the Jade Emperor where the people were dying of drought and they were calling up for help, and the Jade Emperor was ignoring them. So the dragons left the places where they should be to go to the Jade Emperor to ask for help for the people. Can you bring them rain? You know, and the Jade Emperor was distracted, by music or something like that. And he said, yeah, I'll sort it out. Go. You're fine. Just go. I'll sort it out. You know, and the first thing he said was, why have you left your estate? Why are you not where I said you should be? You know, he seems pretty pissed off that the dragons have left the sea, for example. These are water dragons, you know. Right. Like, why aren't you in the sea making sure the sea works? like, why aren't you being the cog in the machine I designed? That's what he's saying, basically. But he says, go back, I'll bring rain to the people, don't worry about it. But then months pass and nothing comes. So the dragons go back to the Jade Emperor and see that he's still distracted. So they say to each other, let's give rain to the people ourselves. You know, let's just do it ourselves. We're water dragons. So they do give people the rain. Jade Emperor finds out, is furious, and long story short, he traps all the dragons underneath 4 mountains, and then the rivers come out from those mountains, and the rivers of China today, whatever. But these analogous stories we're getting are talking about dragons being the servants of God, you know, in a way. And these stories are kind of everywhere. Dragons are all over the earth and every continent. And this is what we're talking about here. We're talking about seraphim angels. And I do believe they, as being the closest to God, they were the watchers. They were the ones that were entrusted by God to come down and look after his creation, man. And they're the ones who messed up severely and corrupted it even more. But I do think this rebellion was happening. Cain on one side, rebelling against God, wanting to just destroy his creation, subdue the people that were already there, dominate, destroy the earth, the forests, build cities, you know what I mean, which is quite a domineering, industrious way of thinking. It's described in other books that he introduced weights and measures to the people. That's insane. To us, it seems simple. But to these agrarian people who had no concept of borders or property rights, weights and measures give a sense of ownership, which then leads to possessiveness, which then leads to other problems like greed. Like it's just one thing after another. But Cain was out there just doing all this, while Seth's lineage were being agrarian, one with the land, nature-loving type people, vegetarians, and all the rest of it. But this mark of Cain as well, which he was given, people have argued, oh well, the mark of Cain is like black skin or something. It's been justified throughout the centuries for all sorts of racist nonsense on all sides, everywhere, And people are always arguing today, like who's the true line of Seth and who's the true line of Cain, or who are the real Israelites or whatever. And it's just stupid semantics because Christ came to end all that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter anymore. We're all equal under God through Christ. That's the good news, But the point is, the mark of Cain might not be black skin as people have predominantly seem to have always believed.
Right.
It's actually white skin, but not like me, not like anything human. We're talking like a vampire, and it's described as leprous white, and leprosy gets like chalky, flaky, dead white skin. It's really horrible to look at. They look like corpses, and that's kind of the mark that it seems Cain would have had, if not all over the body, at least the face had this white thing going on. And I do believe, again, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So not only did the seraphim angels come to the serpent in the garden, because they are also dragons, and it came to the serpent humanoid form first, basically said to the serpent, why didn't God choose you to be the king over the earth? You're more superior than the mammals. You're the serpentine race, Like us, we're way superior to these mammal, monkey, primate type race that God chose. So probably stoked jealousy in the serpent race, which then went on to attack the human race and convince them to eat the apple. So that happened. Then once they were kicked out, I think then the angels in rebellion went to Cain and said, look at God, he's kicked you out. Let's team up and keep working together to destroy his creation even further. And then Cain offered up his daughters to have sex with the angels who had just come down 7 generations from that town, because they lived for a long time, by the way. These people lived like 900, 1,000 years. So they were around to see their grandchildren's grandchildren just raised up, So the daughters of Cain are the ones who mixed with the Watchers, which are the dragons. So the daughters of Cain with chalk white
That
skin.
was the first generation? That was the first generation of Cain's daughters and the angels.
Yes, but this all happened in the 6th generation from Seth in the time of Jared. Okay. So there was a 6 generations from Seth where it was just Cain doing his thing, dominating, building up, and became a warring, powerful nation. And it goes on to say, how like a lot of like Lamech and Tubal-Cain were like master artificers of building weaponry and things like this. They were a warring people. They were a dominating people. Seth's lineage not so much. They were more peace. Keeping the peace, keeping the distance, separating themselves from things, being one with the land. It was a completely different, just 2 different paradigms, But it seems like the angels in rebellion sided with Cain, and Cain eventually, by the time of Lamech, offered up his daughters to, the angels in rebellion who came down to Mount Hermon. And what's odd, it's described that Semyaza, the leader of the Watchers, before they all descended, he went down to prepare the way. What does that even mean? What do you mean prepare the way? And I've looked into it, and it seems like he went down to talk to Cain to say, I'm coming down with the guys soon. Okay. Get your daughters ready and prepared, doll them up, whatever you're gonna do. When I come down. We've taught you all these things, once we come down, get them ready to come up. And also, have you built the cities yet? And it's kind of saying, it says these cities are being built in preparation for what's to come, which are the giants. Okay. It seems like he's prepared everything. Like the rebellion's in full swing, the plan's in motion. I've convinced the guys to come down. They think they're coming down to help everybody, but I'm here, to convince them to have sex with these women that you've got prepared, right, Cain? You built all the cities ready to populate with these giants we're going to make. And I think that's what he did. And then he went back up and said, yeah, guys, everything's cool. Come down. And that's where the temptation happened, and that's where the corruption began, and that's when giants started to just fill the place. And it only took about 4 generations before everything was just destroyed. There was nothing left after this.
About 400 years after that. Done.
Yeah, something like that. But the punishment, funnily enough, the punishment for these watchers who did this happened way before the flood, about 200 years before the flood even came.
When they were
they had to watch their beloved ones kill each other. And that's the giants. They had to watch their own children war with one another over petty power squabbles, because the Nephilim weren't that smart. They were like prideful, stupid, giant brutes. But the parents, the angels, were there since the beginning of time. They had the intelligence. They were kind of just using the brute power of their children to dominate God's creation, you know, from like a hidden hand perspective, as the pantheons of gods that people had started to worship during this time. They were posing as gods, making people forget about the one God and his creation, making people worship the creation instead. So you get sun worship cults appearing, planet worship cults, you know, earth worship cults, dragon worship cults, pantheons of gods worshipping cults appearing, anything to distract people away from one God and his creation. So by the time it got to that point, God said, okay, I've had enough. You're gonna have to watch your kids kill each other now. They are not going to continue. So the first OG Nephilim, the really big ones, the Titans, they died by just murdering one another. But they had children too. They had the Nephil and the Elio, and the Eliud as well. It's described in the book of Jasher, I think it is, in the book of Jubilees and Enoch. But these were like quarter angel humans. So the half angel humans raped women. Those women gave birth. So you had like a quarter angel human. And then they raped women. They had offspring. They had like an eighth angel human hybrid. So they get smaller and smaller with each generation, coming closer to the flood. I don't think they killed each other off. It only says you have to watch your beloved ones, which your children immediately die. So they were still around. There was still corruption on the earth, but the big giants were dead. And it's these big giants which were the closest things to looking like a clown, the first original ones. Because if you have pale white-skinned human women, which is the clown thing, the base of a clown, mixing with glowing, fiery, serpentine beings, when that comes together, it doesn't look like a human. It looks like a serpent-human hybrid. Right. And it looks like a white-skinned, big, wide, grinning mouth, bulging-eyed, elongated, pointy features, wild red, glowing-haired clown monster covered in serpent patterns all over the skin, because reptiles are very colorful creatures when you actually look at them. They're very psychedelic to look at. One of the most colorful palettes in all of nature, next to fish and insects. You know, these things are psychedelic to look at. A chameleon, for example, can literally change the colors on its skin. It's nuts, okay? But I think the dragons mixing with humans gave humans this psychedelic look to them. They were insane to look at, fearsome monsters. You know, they weren't just these Conan the Barbarian, huge pectoral, muscle-looking, brown, long-haired things wearing a loincloth, which is what most people draw them as. Right. They were monstrous beings, and you can find depictions of them everywhere on the earth when you actually go looking. And the most closest one I've found, which seems to be the truest to it, is the Gorgon of Greece and the Rakshasas of India, as well, which is Hindu mythology, which actually spreads across a lot of islands in that Indic region, you know, that oceanic region, right? All the way across to Bali, and then if you go across to Papua New Guinea, it starts to blend out into more ancient cultural iconography worship. Then you get into Australia, and you find the Indian influence kind of dissipates. But even they in Australia have their own version, which is called the Wangina, which quite literally looks like a white-faced, huge, red, puffy-haired clown with a frill and polka dot costume and everything. It's unreal. I showed that image. I might be able to share the screen with you now, actually. We'll give you some great examples of this as we actually talk. That's probably a good. Yeah. I think you've disabled screen sharing. You might have to just disable that disability there. I'm not sure how you do that. But I can actually just share with you a compilation of images I've gathered from all these cultures who do it. But yeah, this is where we get the image of a Nephilim looking like a clown from. You know, I've explained clearly that it's this hybrid mix between dragons and humans that creates this big, wide, smiled image. And maybe also give a few examples of these ancestor culture worships. We'll get on to how this got into the modern world and where we got a clown from and how this is still. Yeah, so let's try this. So screen share. Perfect. I can share the screen. So I'll just share. Is there a way to just? Oh no! What am I doing? What am I doing here?
now you got me question. Where are you really?
Is there a way to just share desktop? Share my screen. Let's give Zoom permission to do everything. There we go.
You know what's crazy? Watching your videos made me think about also some of the, I don't know how I actually thought about that, but genies and jinn I don't know how much you've looked into that, but I saw an article when I looked it up because I was thinking about Aladdin and some of these ideas that get put into our kids, put into our brains since we're kids about releasing something, right? You're talking about the genie seems like a friendly ordeal, whatever type of magical things, gives you wishes and all this, but at the end of it, the idea is to free him, free him from wherever he's confined from. And when I looked up what's the historic nature of genies, obviously it's of Islamic tradition. It dates back to them. It goes further back. But one of the things I saw was it said that genies were beholden. The only thing genies were beholden to their kings were angels. And I remember looking at that like, oh, snap. Paul, even the big blue genie might be a Nephilim, son of an angel.
Highly possible. Yeah, I mean, genies come from jinn, which is the Islamic version of a demon, which means smokeless fire.
Yeah.
And it's just a version of the same stories of disembodied spirits, absolutely. And the idea is that you have to do some kind of enchantment to release them from some kind of prison, which again, we'll get into as we talk about the history here. But I think it's nice just to give like a slideshow as I'm discussing, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. But if I go to live images and I just go to rolling images, let's start with Clown 1. And can you see my screen here?
Yep.
So you can see these images. I think are you on the middle of that screen right now? Do I need to move that to one side?
No, I'm good. I'm up top with you. I see everything.
Right. So you can see these two masks, for example. This is from ancient Greek and Roman theater.
Yeah.
So I'll just skip through, so this is an African ancestor spirit worship example. Okay. And again, these things dress like the things to channel the things. This is where they are representing the spirits in the other realm. And naturally, they've gone for white skin with polka dots and multicolored frills and all over the place. This is one of the Raksha demons. This is a particular one in Sri Lanka. This is the Raksha demon mask of Sri Lanka. And this is what a dragon human hybrid would look like.
Right.
And this is what they would have looked like. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying, right?
Yeah.
And notice the tongue sticking out. That's an extremely common motif you find all over the earth. So wherever you see this represented, you're probably looking at a Nephilim creature. So all the patterns on the skin, for example, and here you have the checkerboard in the background as well. This is serpent skin. They're supposed to look like snakes. That's what they're going for here, okay? So here again in Africa, something similar. They're wearing a white skin mask with clownish-like features with multicolored pattern fractaled skin. This is what they're going. They're mimicking the spirits in the other realm, which are the spirit versions of these entities when they walked around as giants.
Right.
Understand? So they kind of look like this now in the spirit realm, more akin to jesters. But in the physical world, they look something like this when they were knocking about. And this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with disembodied spirits of these creatures today. But when they knocked about and actually were physical and eating people, they look something more akin to this. So very terrifying creatures. But this is kind of what they look like now in the spirit form. These are the DMT jesters. These are the Wakinian spirits of the Heyoka tribes in North America. But this is the African version of the same thing, the black and white fractal patterned creature. They seem to change their form slightly with regional variations, but as with the reptilian kingdom, there's variation throughout it of different snakes, different types of snakes, but a snake's a snake, and no matter what type you get, there's certainly different styles of versions of them. But a human snake hybrid would look something like this. And these are echoes. What we see in these costumes are like an echo of an ancient memory. These things were the gods of the people at one point. They are the ancestors who built the civilizations. These are the Nephilim who put themselves in rulership positions over these tribes once. And these tribes still remember them. And so they dress the way they do today in like an ancient oral tradition way. They probably even forget why they do it. But these are memories you're seeing here coming through to the modern day in these costumes. And you got the kabuki theaters and the theaters of China and Japan. And this is the Oni demon. This is their version of the Rakshasa. It's the same thing, a giant. They call them ogres. They have different names for them. But it's a giant, wide-grinned, buck-toothed, clown-like, bulging guy featured wild, crazy, red-haired giants. These are the Nephilim. It's the same thing. We'll get into this later, but secret societies today in the West still venerate the jester and the clown, and we'll get into that later. But here's more African veneration versions. Exaggerated features, giant heads here with wide mouths and multiple colored patterns all over the face. Here's more examples of the spirit realm mimics in African ancestor spirit worship. Same again here. Here with these sound suits is how they've been interpreted by modern arts, but they're dressing here like frequency beings. So they dance in these costumes and wave themselves around really fast, and they look like a blur with the way the reeds just fly all over the place. It's because they're representing like high energetic frequency beings made of sound.
Wow.
The spirits. That's what they're trying to represent. They're trying to mimic something in the spirit realm.
Right.
And they probably see these things when they're tripping on all these hard psychedelics everywhere. So that's why they know how to dress this way, because they've seen it in the spirit realm. So they're copying what they see in order to create a channel, in order to let them into their body or to communicate with them in some way. And that's what these practices are for. They're not really for anything else. And they'll tell you if you ask them. It's not hidden, because they don't see it as a problem or a bad thing. This is their culture. These are their gods. They're very serious. They're not going to hide it from you. But here's more examples of what I'm describing. So this is a common thing. This happens quite a few places. But here's an example in Africa where they do this headboarding thing where they squash the infant's skull. But they do this on every continent. There's examples of these types.
The head. Yeah.
Or the neck with neck rings is another example as well. But what they're trying to do here, they have a beauty standard they've got from somewhere. They're trying to emulate something they consider worthy of veneration or beauty or power or high status or standard. And it's kind of, they do this because they associate with it power.
And this dates back to the head elonging stuff. Dates back to ancient Egypt, even pre-ancient Egypt, I believe.
Yes. Well, I do believe there are humans who have attempted to elongate their skull through methods like this.
Right.
But then there were creatures that were knocking about at some point that actually had elongated skulls. They weren't squash skulls. They had the volume to actually back it up. Because you can squash a human skull as much as you want. You can't increase the volume.
Right.
Okay. But these skulls that have been found, like the Paracas skulls and the ones in the Incan skulls and all over the earth, they actually are elongated with more volume, and they have a different suture on the skull as well than we do. Ours splits into two.
Right.
They just have one around the back. So it's actually a different species. They're not human.
Yeah.
And that proves it just by the fact that the skull is not shaped as a human's would be, and where the neck connects to the skull is a completely different place to where humans are as well, because it has to be in order to support the weight evenly of the elongated skull. But these elongated features, clowns today, for example, often wear a skull cap, which makes it like they have a pinhead of some kind.
Yeah,
because it's an emulation of something like they're doing in these cultures. And the clown costume is a perfectly crafted symbol which mimics and represents Nephilim features, just like these cultures are doing when they dress like this. It's the same thing. They're trying to mimic Nephilim features, which I described to you as serpent-human hybrids. So this is where we get things like vampires from in the modern day. Same thing, white skin, blood drinking. It's just another mimic version. The Nephilim were the first vampires in a sense. They were drinking blood all over the place. It's documented very well. The life is in the blood. There's some kind of magic or witchcraft behind it too. It was really a horrible time to be. So
and
clowns
the red lips could also represent blood around the lips. Is that true?
Yes, yeah, quite literally. It could be a symbolic reference to the cannibalistic nature. Sure, like when a child eats spaghetti bolognese and is just smeared with that red stuff. That's probably what they would have looked like, just chowing down on a human corpse, whatever. But also, as that first image I showed you at the start, they actually did have big red lips. Because a human has lips that are quite red and fleshy and puffy. Snakes don't. They have no lips. But you blend those two things together, you get a snake-like being with lips. It would look very weird.
That's kind of smiling. Are they interpreted to be smiling, or is it just the way they're shaped that we interpret them as smiling?
If you look at a serpent head on, it looks like it's smiling at you.
Right.
But it's not. It's the way its mouth is shaped. It's just the way it works.
Almost
so
like
shrine
when bulls look at you, they kind of have that smile.
Yeah, but it's not. It's just by the nature of their wide maw, because serpents dislocate their jaws to eat prey. I imagine the dragons could do this too, and so could the Nephilim. They could open their mouth really wide. in a very terrifying sense. Think of like The Ring, for example. When they die, they have their mouth like wide open or something like that. I think that's probably hints of all these things as well. But the Shriners, well, I'll just give you a hint here, are a step above Freemasonry. Freemasons were the ones who created the costume of a clown. It's well within the secret societies. And the Shriners, which are supposed to be an Arabic-themed sect of the craft, for some reason, they all dress like Western clowns. They have a sect within each shrine that is dedicated to dressing like a clown. And that's odd. Why? Well, my research kind of makes it clear. It's because it's their gods. They're in communication with these demons still today. It never stopped. This is just their way of publicly doing it without us realizing it. So they created the clown to mimic the costumes worn by these people, for the same purpose, to channel the spirits. But they do it publicly without us realizing it. So here's an example of the Sri Lankan demon, okay? This thing has a weird story. This thing basically was the son of a king, okay, who was abandoned and chucked away because he looked like this. And the king said, "This is not my son. Okay, you've cheated on me. My wife has cheated on me. Okay, this is not my son."
You got her Nephilim on, huh?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, if you go to Greek mythos, the gods, which is the pantheons of that region, Zeus, for example, and all the rest of them, well, these are angels.
Right.
Taking human form, okay, who have resided over humanity as gods, and they see people as their plaything.
Wow.
Well,
the Greek pantheon, you're saying, could be interpreted as they were the angels, a part of the Watchers? Like
the rebellious angels who took human wives and mated with them. And they did. Many stories in Greek mythos are literally of the angels raping human women in many sneaky ways, often taking the forms of
different things
to deceive them. And guess who they always went for? They always went for the queens or the daughters of kings. Why? It's because they're trying to birth legitimate heirs to thrones and kingships. They're usurping the thrones with their seed, the serpent seed, the dragon seed. And this is another example in Sri Lanka of the same thing. This king's wife gets pregnant and gives birth to one of these things. And the king's like, "This ain't mine." Like, where did this come from? And it's the same thing was happening in Greece. Yeah, the same thing was happening in Greece or in mythos as well. The gods were always coming down and raping the wives of kings. In one story, Zeus quite literally, for 2 weeks, is the king. He makes himself look like the king and sleeps with the king's wife for 2 weeks straight without her ever realizing it, until he returns back on official business. You know what I mean? And he clears off.
Yeah.
But this is what they're doing. This is the modus operandi. This is an agenda. There's a plot here. They want to get legitimate heirs who have a right to claim the thrones, officially speaking, into these positions of power. And this is where it began. And this
there's no way there could have been just a thought like, oh, these angels came down here and saw these beautiful women and wanted to have sex with them. It seems like there was more of an intricate plot here.
Yes.
That these angels wanted to put seeds of power on thrones of men and take over the world, or maybe have their own, because there's also kind of like a science biology too. They're obviously messing with genetics and trying to create their own thing, and I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just seems crazy.
Well, it's in rebellion against God's decision to put the human as God over the earth, as king over the earth. They said, no, we're going to be kings over the earth, and our children are going to be kings over the earth. That's the rebellion. It's this, and God even says to the serpent in the Garden of Eden, "I'm going to put enmity between your seed and the seed of the woman." Okay, so this is the serpent seed talk. Okay, people have always speculated, but that must mean that Cain isn't actually human or Adam's son. The serpent must have had sex with Eve in the Garden of Eden, and now her child Cain from then on is a serpent seed. Now I don't actually buy that. I think what God was doing there was saying to the serpent race, or maybe the seraphim angels. Again, it's hard to tell exactly. There's a realm of speculation here, but I think God knew what the plan was. I think he was forewarning them before they even created the Nephilim dragon human hybrids. I know what your plan is, but you're not going to win. Okay, you may for a short season dominate the earth with your serpentine race and start corrupting things, but you will only bite the heel of the human race. They will crush your skull. They will win. He was telling them ahead of time before any of this was even done. And this is an example of what I'm showing on the screen here of one of the serpentine races, the son of a queen, a human queen, half angel, half human hybrid. And look what it looks like. It looks like a Rakshasa demon with the big wide grin, red lips, bulging eyes, multicolored pattern fractal clothing, snakes associated with it everywhere, symbolically speaking. And this thing was eating humans. It's got a leg in its mouth there, you know.
I didn't even
It's
see
seen.
that.
It's usually holding two men in its arms by the torsos. You know what I mean? Just holding on to these two humans.
Right.
And these little faces you see around it are illnesses it can put on people. It had magical powers. It could spread death and disease and plagues wherever it went. And this thing is said to have grown up in a pile of bodies because it was just thrown into a body pit at birth as a baby. But it didn't die. It grew up really quick because it's a Nephilim. And that's what they do. They just keep growing. And it survived by eating the carcasses of all the dead things around it. And then it eventually emerged from its pit and then just destroyed like thousands and thousands and thousands of people, just ate them, just decimated the kingdom that his father ran, who he claims rejected him out of anger and rebellion, you know. But then it says, I think it says then to solve this, Buddha came and fought with the beast or something and then talked it down and convinced it. It's just the whole other mythos of an angel coming to be the savior of the situation. But I think there's a lot of that going on. I think there's a lot of angels create Nephilim, Nephilims cause problems, angels come and offer the solutions. There was a lot of that going on to make the angels out to be the saviors of mankind.
Right.
But but they caused the problem to begin with. Did you get what I mean? It's like
it's kind of propaganda going on, trying to like say we still look good here, but we're creating these monsters.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like, no one knew an angel actually created this thing officially,
right?
You know, because it's supposed to be the daughter of the king and queen. Sorry, the child of the king and queen, right? But the king was having none of it from the beginning. He was like, "This ain't mine. What have you been doing?" You know, like you belong to the streets clearly because this is not my child. It's that type of, it was one of those type of things, you know. But this is just one story. This is one story of thousands. You know, this happens a lot. And here's another example of a elongated skull of a African god. This is a trickster god of the I can't remember what religion it is specifically in Africa, but they have a creation myth that he came down to earth when it was nothing but water and started creating land, and as it goes on. But if you look at this, the defining features, wide bulging guys, elongated skulls, it's a common descriptor of Nephilim. It's just another example of a serpent hybrid human of some kind, which has been equated to be like godly in nature.
Right.
Here's some of the this is like Tibetan themed Book of the Dead stuff, but it also has like a Hindu influence. And these are just dead hungering spirits, you know, and they're quite thin and fleshly. But if you look at them, they've got these big wide grins, unnaturally human grins with the book sharp teeth and pale white skin. In Japan, they have like what are known as hungering, wandering spirits, which again look very similar. And funnily enough, that's the same description given to demons in the Bible and the Book of Enoch. They wander in dry places. They hunger and thirst, but have no means to satisfy these lusts and urges because they don't have a body. So they seek people's bodies to possess them in order to use their senses to feel things once more. So the same stories everywhere, and these are the examples. Now, some people believe when we die, our souls just wander the earth. Now, some of these cultures do believe they're just talking to their relatives. Biblically speaking, that does not happen. The only thing on the other side that's stuck there are these things, the Nephilim. They cannot leave the earth. They cannot go up or down. They are of the earth, and in the earth they shall remain in physicality, in death, and in spirit, in physical and spirit. So when they die, they remain here, and that's the only thing you really are communicating with in the dead realm, you know, the astral realms. So that's what I think these are, just another representation of the spirit version of these creatures. You know, it's the same.
When the only times we really kind of get a glance at these things is through psychedelics. A lot of people are saying, right, through that psychedelic realm of reality. A lot of people have claimed to seen these type of things, or gestures, or clowns, or all types of similar. Look at this right here, red nose. There is something to it where all these, it's too similar. It's too similar where these things, all these cultures are sharing the same type of character, this white face or this bug-eyed kind of smiling, tongue out, or red hair. All these giant that they talk about giants, and they always seem to end up. I mean, the only conclusion is if you go back to the oldest sources that we have that said, "Yo, these things were here." You know?
Exactly. Yeah, they just go by many names. So a lot of people have always equated their specific culture to be unique against everybody else's. Because it's kind of regional, you know, and why would they know about anybody else's culture necessarily? But when you actually start pattern recognitioning all of them, you realize they all have very similar stories with very similar characters, with very similar physical aesthetical features. And again, this is the Selknam tribes of the South Americas, right at the tip of South America. And they're dressing in these polka dot black and red and white patterned psychedelic clothing, just like you saw the African tribes doing earlier, you know. In these versions, like it's the same thing, but they're completely separated by vast swaths of ocean and land, thousands upon thousands of miles, you know. But why do they're all seeing the same thing in the spirit realms? Like what you see here in Africa is identical to what I just showed you there from the tip of South America for the Selknam tribes. Like, it's how can they have the same designs? And because they all share the same history, they all saw the same thing. They're all trying to venerate something that was in the ancient past. They're all looking at the same creatures in the spirit realm. There's something going on where that's connecting them all together to have this visual aesthetical similarity. And they're all clownish features by a Western standard, which is why I have the title, The Nephilim Looked Like Clowns. You know, the truth is now clowns are quite literally modeled after Nephilim. It's the other way around, you know. And this is, for example, the Wakinyan spirit, the thunder gods of North America, the Dakota peoples of North America. And they dress like this, like a heyoka, in order to channel this specific thunder spirit, in order to intercede with it and hopefully plea to it not to bring destructive thunder and rain. Okay. And they're hoping to dress like the thing, to channel the thing, to talk to it, to tell it not to bring destruction upon us. That's the aim of the heyoka. And then they also take on a shamanistic spiritual leader role as well within the tribe, where they are the ones who are in connection with the spirits, but they also act as contrarians to teach people about things, about the societal norms they should follow. So they're also seen as clowns in a sense as well, because of their contrarian nature. And these are called clown societies in North America, but there's just too many similarities in every culture. I'm showing you a vast swath here in just these few images alone of very different cultures, you know, with different histories and stories, but they all share the same theme. You know, look at this polka dots, white skin, polka dot patterns, elongated skull cap there. This is back to Papua New Guinea. Same thing. They're trying to emulate something with this headdress. You saw the red nose one earlier, didn't you? Yeah. And that's also Papua New Guinea. Red feathered headdress, wild red hair with a red nose. It's there, you know. It's just the versions of clowns. This is a particular clown spirit as well in Japan. And again, I think snakes come in all forms and colors and sizes, so we will see variations.
Yes.
Okay, but there's a reason why they are the way they are, is what I'm saying. Again, this is a Rakshasa representation of India. Another example there of an Oni. Back to Papua New Guinea.
I mean, if you watch a lot of anime, I mean, Japanese, they constantly have either these type of creatures or literally clowns as bad guys. You know, similar to I was watching this one anime called Hunter x Hunter, and one of their main, like, powerful evil villains is this jester clown looking guy that, you know, does some type of sorcery or something. And I'm like, you know, there's something to this. They keep showing us, or people remember it subconsciously, or it's just in the ethos of our cultures or something. But it's interesting.
Well, this would have been the mark of Cain here, for example. This is what I'm talking about. This is how these things would have looked, the humans at the time, you know. And when you mash that together with a dragon, you get something that looks like maybe this.
Right,
you know?
right.
It gets a bit wild. It gets a bit weird, you know.
You go from being ashy to a dragon.
Yeah, but here's Papua New Guinea again, a very isolated cannibalistic tribe in Papua New Guinea, and they white the face up and put red on the nose with polka dots. These are clown aesthetics by our standards in the West. Okay, this
even
is where
the cone hair type of the way
this is so when the Freemasons formed the clown, they were looking at these cultures and copying them. This is what they're doing. And that's so, you know, this is where we get it from. It's a mimicry of these cultures. There's Monsters Inc., interdimensional demons who feed off the energy of fear of people and laughter, which is what a clown does. It induces either fear or laughter in people because they feed off that type of energy when you're channeling one of them. So I thought that was quite funny. It is literally an interdimensional demonic monster who manifests physically as a clown in order to feed off the fear of people. It uses fear to infuse the physical blood with adrenochrome so it can then go on to feed off them. It's kind of like salting their meal before they eat it, you know what I mean?
Right,
That's kind of
right,
how
right.
they see it. And I thought it's interesting that they incorporated a clown into that as well. Stephen King probably knew all this. He's probably an insider, and he has no new ideas of his own, you know.
Absolutely.
But here's that same cannibalistic tribe. I'm not sure if this guy knows he's in serious danger or not, but you know, they have the white face, red nose thing with the polka
Doesn't know how
dots.
delicious he looks to them right now.
Yeah, exactly. There's again more examples, and you know, this practice of dressing like a clown to channel the spirits in order to gain something from it, would that be power or fame or immortality or strength or whatever it is, whatever you want. The music industry know this, and they use this to their own advantage. All artistic industries use this. The secret of the industry is dress like a psychedelic clown monster and you probably will get famous and rich. You will be elevated. Because the people who rule the industry are in the game of finding people who dress this way and putting them in positions of veneration in front of audiences so more people copy them. The more people you can get copying these idols who dress like clowns, the more channels you're opening up. So it's quite nefarious when you see it on the surface. But you'll find the more famous these people get, the more they start to look like a clown. The whiter the skin gets, the more colorful their clothing gets, or their hair, the redder their lips get. It's because they're utilizing something. White skin, red lips, multicolored hair is a channeling tool.
Right.
It's an occult practice. Okay, it's a magic. It's witchcraft at its finest form, and these people know it. And it's a part of the higher up knowledge. It's the wisdoms they get taught. And you know, makeup. You have to be careful about what you do with makeup and clothing. It's not. It's actually very serious, and we don't think this way in the West because we're not trained to see it that way. And funnily enough, most of our versions of the Nephilim in Europe we call the Wild Man.
Yeah.
We think we dress this way to scare away evil spirits. Just like Halloween, it's the same principle. You're dressing like things to confuse them, you know. But who's right? The culture who dress like these things for thousands of years to be possessed by them, or our cultures who dress like this in the past 200 years to scare them away? It's probably the ancient cultures who are channeling them by dressing like them. It's a very naive view to think that dressing like a demon is somehow going to scare it. I think it's foolish, and a lot of people do not like me saying that. They get offended, but I'm allowed to have an opinion, and the evidence seems to show that dressing like the thing opens up a channel to it. It doesn't scare them away. So it's a foolish practice if you do want to take it from me, you know. But here again, another example of polka dot skin. Children being utterly terrified of clowns by nature.
That's a weird one, isn't it? Like, I mean, we have so many natural fears as humans that we all share, heights and, you know, what else? And probably snakes and things like this. But clowns, like, how did that get into our conscious? Clowns, we're all kids, everything kind of. It's meant to be for kids, but it ends up being scary. I don't know who in the world goes to relax to watch a clown, whether go to a circus and say, oh, yeah, I really want to go see this clown. It's just usually a horrifying creature, or how they kind of perverted in It and other things like this. It's never really that jolly, or the sad clown or something.
Well, no, kids are instinctually terrified of clowns. Studies have been done actually, and I think it's like 1 in 10 children actually like clowns. Why they've been associated with children makes no sense when you look at the data. And you get these old photos of like children screaming with fear at the prospect of being in the arms of this monster. And then you get in the background the parents laughing like it's funny and cute. And it's like you're traumatizing this child. Like, and I think it's like an instinctual thing, because if it's like a predator response. If these things used to eat us and they were predators and we were prey, I think that might be ingrained in the collective psyche of humanity, in our blood and in our DNA, to naturally be terrified of anything with these type of features. And maybe it's just in us now, you know, from a mass trauma event of all of collective humanity at one point. But funnily enough, the big red nose is a real genetic condition that we can trace, that primarily pale-skinned people get. and it's called a rhinophyma. So here's an example.
Oh.
And the only way you can cure it, which this woman has clearly done, is you have to cut it off. You shave it off with a hot wire. That's the only way you get rid of it.
Wow.
So you remove it, you scrape it away with a very hot wire until you sculpt a normal looking nose out of that bulbous thing. That's how you get rid of it. And this happens. It's colloquially called terminal rosacea. It's end stage rosacea. It's like the maximum level rosacea can manifest in its worst case scenario. And rosacea comes with red blotches and patches all over the skin, and it's primarily a white person problem. But it is a genetic condition. It's not just something all white people get. It's a genetic defect, and you have to have the condition to have this happen to you. It won't just happen because you're cold or you drink too much alcohol, which a lot of people believe quite naively. It has nothing to do with that. Either you have the genetic condition or you do not. And it's called the curse of the Celts because it's predominantly Northern European people who get this. Some other races
born with it? Is it all not just the gene, but are you born with the physical attribute?
No, it develops as you age.
Okay.
Yeah, but you're born with the defect. Whether you either have it or you don't. And it's called the curse of the Celts because it's predominantly a Northern European issue. It can happen in any race. Any race at all can get this, but it's like 98% white people. That's how it works. And I actually have a version of this called hemochromatosis. Okay. Mine won't manifest like this. Mine has more to do with the way my body processes iron. I can't process it, so it just builds up in me. Most people, their body would use the iron to make red blood cells or repair tissue, and then you would urinate all the excess iron out. I don't. My body just keeps storing it and storing it and storing it until it overspills in my organs and becomes toxic, and then I die. That's basically my version. So I have to regularly keep it down by getting blood drawn because iron's in the blood.
How often do you have to do
that? Well, I'm actually at the end of my treatment now. It was extremely dangerously high, but it's almost back to normal levels now after having about 8 venesections. And then once it's back to normal levels, it can take months for it to go anywhere near over. So after this, it'd be like once every half a year, I have to go and just get a bag taken out of me just to knock it down a peg again.
Right.
But it's a lifelong condition. It's the genetic corruption. It's kind of, I was born with it because my parents carried the two things as well, and they came together. And by chance, that means I now have it. But they were carriers. And because both genes came together in my parents, I've got the full problem. But it's really odd. It's like, and the chances of getting this and manifesting the way it does is rare. But in some cases, it manifests like you see this lady here. Very extreme cases. But you either have the iron problem or you have the rosacea problem. It's one of the two. I don't have the rosacea issue. I have the iron issue. But this is funny because when we're talking about white-skinned things, well, Cain's lineage were the whitest, and the Nephilim are very pale-skinned. So it's possible they also, in some way, have this condition where they end up with a big red bulbous nose of some kind, and that's why the Nephilim feature is in a clown, a red nose of some kind. Maybe it actually was a real thing. Older Nephilim, as they age, developed. It's very possible, as it just features being manifested in caricatured forms. This is a caricature of a real condition the Nephilim would have had.
Right.
And it's really bizarre. Here's an Indian tradition called the Theym. This person dresses this way in order to be possessed by the spirit, and then the people offer it things like live chickens or whatever, and the guy who's possessed by the spirit will rip the heads off those chickens and just eat it whole and drink the blood and do all sorts of things, because they have to take the sacrifice, because that's what the thing in them wants. It wants to drink blood, so you give it blood by drinking it, and it experiences that feeling through your body. Do you get what I mean? And then in return, it gives wisdom to the village. They ask it questions and it tells it things only a spirit could know about what a certain person's doing thousands of miles away, for example, or things like that. You know what I mean? Or
was it the Dogon that knew where the Sirius B or one of these planets were or something like that too? Like, how would you know that if it possibly wasn't for information? Like,
they knew things you can only know with a modern telescope. Yeah,
right.
They knew things which were just way beyond their capacity to understand, because the knowledge was likely given to them by spirits that they had channeled in the past. Absolutely, it was fish spirits that came out of the river. So that's probably just another play on like a water element angel. you know,
Right,
which
right,
then this is because they said angels are attached to certain geographical locations and elements and things like that. Like the water dragons of China, I mentioned, maybe they encountered like a fish water element or something that they claim fell from the sky, by the way. And the angels were said to have been cast down in rebellion. There's all sorts of things going on. Here's the cookery in Europe, in Bulgaria. They have their own version. Here's an old Sri Lankan mask of the Raksha. So you can see the Nephilim were wild-looking creatures, and the clown we have today is based off of them. And we do rituals every year in the West called Red Nose Day, where they get all the public to dress up like a clown. These are giant invocation rituals. These are not just fun for the kids to raise some money for charity. Okay, they've got us all playing the game.
Yeah,
they're very sneaky about it. Here's
I mean, you're right though. Like even I that might be older or not familiar with to me the red nose thing, but like you showed earlier, things like music where Doja Cat, you had that picture of her. There's so many musicians and people doing this type of like, I used to call it artists dressing like superheroes. Like they always have this exaggerated look, but when you talk about it, it kind of correlates more with clowns. Like they dress like clowns. They dress like some type of out of this world thing. Maybe it makes you more popular. Maybe it draws eyes to you. And could it rub off on younger people wanting to dress like that? Well, we know that the cultural leaders and stuff often influence young people to dress how they dress and listen to what they listen to, read what they read, watch what they watch. So yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, here's Clint Eastwood, for example, the famous song by the Gorillaz. It's the music video.
Yes.
And it shows them in a white void playing music, playing the ritualistic beats, the summoning ritual. And then what happens is it cracks open and then the drummer is possessed, okay, from doing the ritualistic tribal drumming. And then what bursts out of him is this thing, which is a clown spirit with pale, bluish, dead skin, with the red lips, and it's a giant. It's stomping around, and the first words it says is, "Finally, someone's let me out of my cage. Time to me is nothing. I'm showing no age." And he goes on to explain how he's a timeless, immortal being, and how he influences the entire music industry. He's the one whispering in the ears of all the famous people. He writes all the songs that you listen to. Okay. And he does it through Russell, the fictional drummer in this example, you know, and he's the one who creates the beat. So yeah, sorry, there you go. You know, they hinted it all the time. The music industry knows.
That's exactly. You know, that's what the Nephilim are saying when they come out.
Well, yeah, basically, yeah, exactly. And you know, I mean, these images just go on forever. This is just one.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we've got here. So, China, the other examples. Here's another odd tribe in Papua New Guinea. They wipe the skin up and put red reeds all over their body to give themselves red hair.
I mean, we see these things all the time. We just never ask why. Why
exactly
with the white paint? Why with these type of faces? Why? Like, oh, we're just not. We just accept it as, oh, cultures are different. People just have different ways.
Yeah. So this culture in Africa, they believe the tallest men with the whitest eyes and the whitest teeth are the most attractive, and they do this mating dance ritual where they trip balls on psychedelic amphetamines and chatter their teeth, making a droning noise, gurning like hell, basically. And they do it for hours and hours and hours and hours. And the ones who can do it for the longest, the ones who can jump the highest, attract the women, you know. And this is a beauty standard that they've picked up from somewhere. And look at the way they do what they do to themselves. And the paint they use here actually is called kohl, Kohl. And this is antimony. This is made from a specific powder from a metal called antimony. And it said in the book of Enoch, it was the angels who taught mankind the use of antimony for this purpose of enchantments. And these tribes are still using antimony specifically to paint their face up to channel these entities for enchantment purposes. So it's kind of
that is crazy.
It's ancient knowledge, you know, and it's the same metal lead based paints they're using here, the method of antimony, to make these makeups and that they use for ritualistic purposes of channeling entities. Today, we don't use lead-based paint in the West because it's poison, but these tribes still do it. You know, they still use it. And I thought that was interesting that even in the Book of Enoch, it clearly says that this was given to them as wisdom from the angels to use this stuff. And people have always said, oh, well, you know, the angels taught them makeup so the women could attract men, and it's all about lust. Not at all. I think they taught them these practices. Dress like the thing to channel spirits. That they taught them a powerful tool to communicate with the spirit realm. They gave them esoteric wisdom, of how to be more powerful. Right. A more powerful wizard is what they were teaching them. Esoteric secrets that mankind shouldn't really know because no good ever comes from it. That's what they were teaching them. And I think the use of makeup as a tool to channel spirits was one of those things that was taught by the Watchers.
So you don't think at all the beauty aspect has nothing necessarily to do with it?
It's the lowest tier of what it has to do with it.
Got you.
It's certainly a part of it, the beautifying of the eyelids in order to deceive people, but the ultimate way of using makeup is for this purpose, to channel things that are on the other side. Like that's the most powerful way of using it. The Royal Order of the Jesters, a step above shrining. They also venerate the jester in a quite literal sense. Here's another Rakshasa mask from Bali plays. This is Rangda, the Demon Queen.
I have a cousin just like that.
Yeah. Look at these things. That's a clown by any standard, with Absolutely. The horrible wide smile and the bulging eyes. Back to Papua New Guinea again, more African. This is the Selknam tribes I mentioned earlier from South America. Who, by the way, the Selknam are now all but extinct. They were genocided big time.
Really?
Massively. They were just absolutely wiped out. The population was like 10,000. There's now like 50.
What part of South America is this?
Literally South America, the tip.
Oh, okay.
Right, closest to the South Pole tip, that whole region. Yeah. They just basically filled that whole tip up, and but they were through colonization of they were just decimated, which is sad. Here's serpent skin as an example of where they pick up these colorful designs from. Now this clown looking thing is quite literally painted on an ancient piece of Greek pottery. It's on the chest of Athena. Okay, now Athena is a fallen angel goddess, a giant goddess. Okay, she's the god of wisdom and war. Funnily enough, she's seen as those things. She was gifted the head of Medusa by Perseus after it was cut off, and she wears the head of Medusa on her chest as a pendant for protection. Okay, and this was a style that was picked up all throughout Roman and Greek culture. You put them on shields, these heads on shields with the tongue sticking out, these Nephilim faces, this thing here, as a seal of protection, as a good luck charm, But this thing is quite literally painted as a clown. But this is a Gorgon. Okay, this is what it's representing Medusa. This is what Medusa.
That's crazy.
This is what Medusa.
Every interpretation of Medusa we have is with the snake hair and stuff. To see this, that looks exactly like a clown. That looks exactly like a clown.
That modern interpretation of Medusa with the snakes for hair is more metaphorical of her serpentine blood. She didn't look like that. She looked like a clown, and she had legs like a human, and wings. And I'll show you some depictions exactly. But this is the Heyoka and the Pueblo clowns of the Americas, the American plains. These are the clown societies. These are the contraries, as they would call them, and they play a sacred role in the cultures. But they are clearly emulating something they've seen in the past. These are the serpentine-looking creatures, the Nephilim that were once around. Clowns again. This is the Haka of New Zealand. This is the Aboriginal face paint they wear with the tongue sticking out. They're trying to look like something. They make their eyes bulge while they're doing it. They're emulating something that distills fear in the hearts of their enemies. That's the point of it. This is the Batimolo of Rio de Janeiro, that when Carnival happens, they have their own little carnival in the ghettos, and this is how they dress. And they brought this over from Portuguese ancestor spirit worship cultures of the wild man venerations, which is from the Queritos. But this is a modern interpretation, and they lean heavily into clownish looking stuff. The Vegigantes as well. This is another example of the same thing in a similar region of Brazil. This is the Basler Fastnacht of Switzerland, a festival, Lent, Carnival, again from Europe, where they all dress like clowns for a night. And this is the Kukuri of Bulgaria, where they do the same thing. And they believe they're scaring away the evil spirits before they fast. But it's, these other cultures don't believe they're scaring anything away. They're channeling them. These guys are channeling them. These guys think they're scaring them away. Do you get what I mean? They can't both be right, unfortunately. Only one of them's working, and I think it's the channeling.
Yeah.
Okay. And here's early circuses. This is the Barnum and Bailey's combined circus with the Ringling Bros. That's an unnaturally wide smile, right? Humans don't have teeth like that. It's because they knew what they were doing when they did this. They're emulating Nephilim features, the wide grin, serpentine mouth of a Nephilim creature. Here, back to India again in the Theum. This is the Kratos of Portugal. This is their wild man. Okay, and from these older Celtic traditions, which dominate all of Europe, you then get the modern versions in carnivals in the colonized Americas like this. But the original form is this. Okay, so that's the cultural brought over to the Americas. This is what they brought over, the Kratos, these type of things. And they're literally representing giant hairy demons, right? That were very colorful, as you can tell. The Nephilim of Europe, the European version of Nephilim. Every culture has their own version, and the wild men giants of Europe, this is how they represent them in their costumes. Okay. This is how they do it in Switzerland. Here's what you were talking about with the stilts earlier.
Yep.
Same thing. Clowns wear stilts because they're representative of being a giant.
Right.
It's a metaphor for Nephilim symbolism, Johnson circuses again. Here's back to India. Polka dots, red polka dots on the skin.
Speaking of India real quick, do you feel that some of their gods, and not to offend anybody, but some of their gods of their pantheon of gods, like I think Vishnu, the blue one, and the ones with the many hands and the monkey type of looking one, like, do you think some of those were either Nephilim or angels?
I think it's a mix of both. I think India has a very different flavor of religion than most of the places. I get the feeling Indian gods are talking about an even more far ancient time than most of the places. Because they talk about times where the gods were at war with each other and there was nothing but gods on the earth. And they all had a massive war with each other and completely destroyed the place.
Like millions of years ago, right?
Yeah, with like extremely powerful weapons and Vimana flying machines and nuclear war type destruction. That's what a lot of what the mythos of these ancient Vedic text, these Hindu texts talk about. And I think they might be talking about a time even before Adam, even before the earth as we know it.
Interesting.
Because it says in the beginning the earth was form and void. And it's as though it's been made form and void by something that happened and God's starting again. It seems to be that type of language, and it's possible the angels used to be the first creation in a sense that had the earth and they utterly destroyed the thing through the stories and tales of these ancient gods of the Hindu.
Oh, you just blew my mind just now.
And I think Gary Wayne discussed this concept with me, which blew my mind. And
really,
that's how he's kind of pieced it into this, the chronology, if you want to call it this, because we're playing a game here.
Angels could have been like God's original new life, and they went to war. They destructed. They're the Indian and some of the maybe other gods of distant past that we think of.
Maybe,
and
maybe, or
God
it could be
quite literally.
It could quite literally also just be they're just playing the same game in that region as the Greek gods were in the European regions. They're just these fallen angel watchers in rebellion posing as pantheons. You could just say that as well. It's like the Norse gods as well, in this all the same thing. Wherever you go, where there's a pantheon, or even like the sun worship gods or the dragons of the feathered serpents of Quetzalcoatl of North America, were playing that game over there of literal dragon gods everywhere, or the dragon gods of again, the Jade Emperor of China, or the rainbow serpents of and the Wangina offspring of Australia. I think wherever you go, they played their own game, depending on what the people would believe and go with. But India does have this very unique way of doing it, which implies a far more older tradition as well.
Right.
Really old, really. But then obviously later traditions do appear, which may be more akin to something like the pantheons of Egypt, as well as Greek and all these type of things. And you can see a lot of people have done side-by-side comparisons of the new gods, and they're very similar to the pantheon of Egyptian gods in India. And you could say they were talking about the same gods, the same with the European pantheons of the Celtic regions as well. And it's like you just see patterns emerge, you repeat patterns, and it seems like the angels had a formula they like to follow wherever they went. And don't forget, there was 200 of them. So they could easily devise themselves up into 20 different pantheons of 10 and just
Right.
take over a region each, you know? Like there's nothing stopping them from coordinating like that and having their own style. But it's the aesthetical similarities. When you start looking at them, you realize there's a thread here that runs through all of them, and the Nephilim kind of tie it all together quite a lot more easily.
Right.
And I think a lot of people need to get out of this idea that their unique culture is unique.
Mhm.
They're not. They're far from it, you know. And just because you've believed it your whole life as the one way, doesn't mean that other people aren't doing the exact same thing just by a different name over there. And you have to wonder why it's the same. You know, there's something odd going on.
Right.
And again, the practices involved with a lot of these cultures are highly questionable, and it does usually involve communication with the spirit realm through dressing like this.
Right.
Here's another African example, very clownish. Here's the insane clown posse playing the same game, you know.
Yeah.
Look at that party hat they're wearing there. You have to wonder where we get our pom-pom covered party hats from.
Right.
Are they mimicking these things? You know, and it's for the kids. But these are tools. These are witchcraft tools, essentially. And we get kids to wear them at their birthday.
It always starts being like, you know, catered the thing to kids. I wonder why that is.
Absolutely. Look at these ones, you know, very clownish, very childlike as well. This is the Lazarus, which is just down the road from the Kratos you saw earlier in Portugal.
Yeah.
They are literally looking like devils and demons with horns. They went a next step above, you know. Red nose here. This is the Thame of India again. They're all trying to represent something. This is the Batibola of Rio. Back to this is a dancing of this is a particular dance they do in an African tribe. I can't remember the name now, but it's an impressive dance actually, very fast, very insane. But they look like a blur. They're trying to make themselves look like a vibrating creature in like a imperceptible way. You know, that's the aim. Here's the clowns of Americas again, the Pueblo and the Heyokas. Here's a Rakshasa represented in Indian artwork. Pale white skin, fiery red hair, cannibalizing a human, just tearing him apart. Big wide grin here from that tribe again, trying to attract females. You see, this is Monsters Inc. by the way, just there making a joke there.
It's everywhere. I mean, media, religions, it's just everywhere. And Paul, I don't know how much longer I have you for, but I do want one thing I do want you to touch on is it going to westernize it now. The whole Charles Dibdin thing with it coming, you know, that comparison to the Indian iconography is like pretty spot on in my opinion.
Sure.
No other...
I do have luckily most of those files on hand here actually. I think they're in this folder. Okay, so to summarize this very quickly, I do go into a lot of detail on my channel, and I've said this story a lot. But where we get a modern clown from is from a movement called the Comedian Arts. Okay, and the Comedian Arts were a roving gang of actors who got together after the collapse of Rome and traveled all throughout Europe, putting on quick improvised shows on very quickly made stages. Okay, and they had stock characters like you see here on the screen. Okay, they had the servant of the rich man, the other servant of the rich man, the daughter of the rich man, just the baker's woman, just people ordinary audiences would recognize is where the stock characters came from. Okay?
Were they initially for royals only, or was it always for the masses?
This is for the masses, peasants. This particular movement.
Really?
This is just for town squares. They would go from one village to the next, quickly put on a show, put some money in a hat, move on to the next place. Okay, they were vagrants. You know, they were outcasts because during a highly Catholicized Rome in Europe, acting was frowned upon. It was seen as like being a prostitute. It's really a lowly profession for liars who put on a false mask and pretend to be things they're not, you know. It was frowned upon. So that's why they had to kind of leave Rome in a way. And this Italian tradition spread all throughout Europe, and it began to, in 200 years later, it settled in theaters as a pantomime, you would call it. And France had their own flavor, and Britain had their own flavor as well.
By the way, I'm calling all my actor friends from now on prostitutes, just to let you know.
Well, in a way, yeah, they are for hire, aren't they? You know, to pretend to be something they're not. You know, and it's seen as like naturally sinful and deceitful by nature to be an actor. You know, that's kind of how they saw these things. So they had to adapt and travel and put on these quick shows, you know, and a tradition was born and people joined it like a traveling circus, and people were trained at how to do the routines of specific characters, you know what I mean? And there was things that became expected of certain characters, you know, of ways they should behave. And they were all, in a way, clowns. They were all humorous in their own way, you know, and they all had their own thing going for them. But Harley Quinn, who you see here as Arlecchino, was brought in 1671 as a relatively late addition. This is like 1,000 years after the movement began, you know. Arlecchino here was added, and he's basically Harley Quinn. Right. Now, Harley Quinn is named after Helikins, which is a wild man of France. Okay, Helikins is what they called this wild man beast of the French region. And don't forget, I showed you earlier, the wild man tradition is everywhere, all over Europe. It's not just France. It's in Portugal. I showed you the Kratos. I showed you the Romanian cookery. But it's in every continent. Every country on that continent has a wild man tradition where they dress like a wild hairy beast like this and do these things. This is what Harley Quinn is based on. Okay,
and is that any relation to the Nephilim, you think, or that's just wild men were completely different?
This is the Europeans' version of the Nephilim. This is what they look like. Maybe it's because they adapted to the region. It was colder. They were hairier in Europe. I don't know, but this is their version of wild man-eating giants.
Wait, was there any connection to what do they call those ancient our cousins in Europe? They were the
Neanderthal?
Neanderthal. Because I've heard that Neanderthals possibly looked more like this than just us with a big forehead.
Maybe. I've also heard that Neanderthal quite literally was just a way of covering up Nephilim remains. So it could be that, you know,
Paul coming with the conspiracies today. Let's go. All right.
Because they had like thicker features than us. They were sturdier, more well built. You know what I mean? And these were giants at the end of the day. And I don't know. It's this. You can speculate for hours on that. Either way, everywhere in Europe they do dress this way, and this is what more often it looks like. Very colourful with these wide smiles. Okay, so they weren't necessarily just like hairy beast men like this necessarily. They were also quite colourful creatures as well, and you see a lot of representations like this, or you see these plain, boring modern representations where they were just hairy men. But I think they looked more like this when they were knocking about, quite colourful and wild and crazy, really, really out there. And therefore, Harley Quinn was kind of modelled after this very popular tradition, which was all over Europe, which everyone would recognise the wild man. So he became a stock character in the form of Harley Quinn or Arlecchino. And this is what he originally looked like. Quite patchworky all over the place, multicolored with a beast mask. His mask was like this, covered in hair.
Right.
With his wide lips and elongated eyes, and he had this horn on his forehead. Quite patchwork and multicolored, quite demonic looking. You see an actor actually here wearing the traditional costume, if I can find it. And he does look quite terrifying, actually, wearing this thing. It doesn't look... I don't know. Something about it is really, really grotesque. So there's the royalty copying the way the Nephilim looked as well. They were definitely into it. And there you go, like this. It's quite a brutish looking thing, you know, in a sense. But it's modeled after the wild man. But there he is in all his early forms. He's like a demonic, weird, conjoined, evil character.
Yeah.
He was meant to represent the demonic entity within the play. That was his role, because he's quite literally modeled after the Nephilim demons of Europe. So there you go. There's the first proto clown. Now, he was cast as a zany character, as a servant for the rich man. Okay, and he would often have a back and forth kind of comedic routine with the other servant of the rich man, which was Pedrolino. So there's Harley Quinn again, looking quite brutish and weird with his red lips. So this is Pedrolino. Pedrolino was the other servant. And they would always kind of have like a who can be the worst servant comedy, or there was many routines they could play this back and forth with. But the most popular one that became the most famous is that Harley Quinn here would steal the daughter of the rich man, which is Columbine. okay, and they would run away together, and Pedrolino here in the middle would chase after them with the rich man. So they would try and get his daughter back from Harlequin, okay? And that was the comedic routine. So here's a diamond patterned idea of a wild man. That's where the Harlequin gets his diamond patterned clothing from. It's a mimic of this. It's to also represent tufts of hair. Here's the wild man tradition of the cookery in Bulgaria. This is what they were copying, okay? So anyway, this routine comes. Arlecchino would run away with the daughter of the rich man. Arlecchino was also modeled after some Mediterranean symbolism of Mercury here with his staff, you know, quite quick-witted, fleet of foot, able to do acrobatic feats that were so unhuman, like no human could do these things. He was supposed to represent that weird energy. He would do pretty rude things with his slapstick. He always had this stick with him, which he slapped the stage with, which would then change the scene instantly. You know, he was a demon with magical powers. That was Arlecchino. That's Harlequin, modeled after Helikins, the French version of Wild Men. So there you go. 200 years later, he gets boring. He changes dramatically, okay? He becomes, here's his costume developing into this fancy lad-looking thing here. You know, quite poncy, tight leotard, not as demonic anymore, not as brutish as his original form here. And he gets boring, really, and the routine gets old, you know. Meanwhile, Pedrolino kind of develops into something like this in France. This is Poirot. So his counterpart, the other servant, Pedrolino, is the clown developing into its form, okay? So here's the clown in France. He was quite a sad clown, always crying and upset and feeling sorry for himself because, you know, while woe is me, why does Columbine love Harlequin instead of me? You know, like, why does she want to run away with him when she could have me instead? I would treat her so much better. He was that kind of guy, you know, just get over yourself type of clown, you know, that type of guy. Anyway, in Britain, clown was very different. Clown was wild and wacky and funny. Still dressed like this, though, like Pedrolino here in plain white clothing. Okay, but he was a lot more of a wild card character and started to act a lot more like Harlequin did. He became more demonic and witty and edgy and weird, you know. Harlequin became a bit more fancy and eloquent and cool and collect, you know. So Clown kind of took over Harlequin as the demon role, and his costume changed at the same time around this time period. So the French clown was doing its sad thing, still dressed in white garbs, you know, looking sad and sorry for itself, like this, you know.
Yeah.
But in Britain, suddenly, out of nowhere, let's see if I can find a decent photo of it here. He started to look something like this monster you see here on the left.
Right.
Just suddenly, a costume change happened. So there's Columbine with Harlequin running away, and there's Pantaloon, the rich man, and his other servant, Pedrolino. You know, it's the same routine. But why would you suddenly change the costume of the clown, which has been the same for 1,000 years, by the way? He's always looked like this, to suddenly dressing in this thing. Where does that come from? Like, it's never explained anywhere why this sudden change happened.
Yeah.
All we get told is that this famous Freemason, Charles Dibdin, he had a son called Charles Dibdin, okay, who basically took over the theater of the day, which had this famous actor called Joseph Grimaldi, okay, and he was just a really brilliant clown. He was just hilarious. People loved him. And he gave Grimaldi his first chance and saw how incredible he was as an actor. And then he introduced during these early shows a brand new costume. And it said, oh, you know, I did it to make my mark on the industry. So people would recognize the Dibdin era of writing plays for Sadler's Wells. He's the one who brought in this new form of artistry through the clown costume, you know. But Joseph Grimaldi is always given credit anywhere you look for the clown costume. He's given the credit. It's like Joseph Grimaldi created the modern clown costume. Anywhere you look for that, he will be equated as the guy who did it. When he didn't create the clown costume, it was the son of this guy who did it. You know, Charles Dibdin. Now, Charles Dibdin Sr. here, prominent Freemason. Okay, he was a member of the Leicestershire Lodge. He was a famous playwright, songwriter, musician, basically a media mogul of the music industry of the day. Okay, he was well established with the British Navy. His songs were sung by the sailors who were out there colonizing everywhere. You know, he was given awards for keeping the morale of the British Navy up with his music. He was like a famous.
You would say he's the Diddy of his day, would you?
Oh yeah, definitely. Even today, his music is still sung at the end of an orchestral yearly show called the Proms. They close.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They close with his song, which is Tom Bowling, which is was named that after his brother who died colonizing India. Okay, he was a member of the East India Company, which was like a company so loosely associated with the British Navy, but was out there actually just colonizing India for its resources. Anyway, this guy, you know, this is what the show started to look like in Britain. Nuts. It just got insane. Okay, and this is kind of what it used to look like, and then it started looking like this. Big change in costume, massive change, you know, completely out there. And it's never explained where he got his inspiration from, but I just told you there, India.
Yeah.
His family was heavily involved with India. His brother died out there, you know, so his uncle died out there, you know. And I do believe they brought Indian demonic iconography back to England with them, and they then dressed the clown in Indian-inspired demon clothing. Okay, and to prove this, I bring the receipts. Here's Joseph Grimaldi being painted in the original costumes he was made to wear in a very strange position.
This is crazy.
It's identical to the Kala Sung Sang Rakshasa demons of Bali.
That's it right there. Absolutely.
In the same costume, all right? It is the same costume. That's where they got their inspiration for it from. They modeled the clown after the Indian version of demons, of Nephilim.
For people that just want to say, oh, well, he was just in India, there's not necessarily, you got to think at a time where there's no television, there's no, the source of entertainment for these men that are colonizing another area is going to be finding out everything about these people's culture, finding out what they can take, what they can, you know, what's the word, appropriate to use to on their own. Of course, they're going to find this fascinating.
Absolutely.
Say, hey, we can use this. We can make some scratch off this.
Yeah. And it was from that day on, you know, that costume became the industry standard for clowns. All clowns followed this pattern. You know, this was it. This is how you dress now if you want to be a clown in your show in your region.
That's
you model
crazy.
After Joseph Grimaldi's clown, after Dibdin's clown, and it's quite literally modeled after the Rakshasa demons of India. Like
absolutely,
that's where they got it. And I can prove this even further. I haven't got the photo here, but I will just go on and just to show this. It's Thailand Rakshasa temple, and if you look at images of these specific demons here, which are on the temple, can you see this one? Maybe I forget.
Oh yeah. Oh, the
sorry, I'm
leaves.
Trying to get used to a Mac here.
Okay.
There we go. Yeah, so there you go. I mean, that's
yeah,
the same
polka
costume.
dot.
You just saw him, the same position. Yeah, so that is, if I can bring it back up, that costume.
Absolutely.
It's the same. It's the same thing. And there's the Rakshasas holding up the temples of Thailand. You know, and that's a clown. That's where we get a clown from. It's modeled after these things, which are India's versions of cannibalistic giant hybrid snake human monsters, which are Nephilim. So the Nephilim look like clowns. Yeah, there you go.
And now the amazing theory. And now the correlation between them and Freemasons, because
yes,
you know, that's one thing for them to take it on the road show, whatever, and you know, go to India, get inspired by this thing that's a demon, aka a Nephilim, and come back and say, hey, we can make a cool costume out of these freaky things. Look how many people in India. You can use that as an excuse and just say they went about their business and maybe it inspired so many. But then when you add the Freemasonry in it, it seems that it gets a little more
it was deeper than that.
Yeah,
absolutely deeper than that. Yeah. So if you look at after this tradition of British theatre, there was an expansionist movement happening in America, independence of America, and spreading out through the land. You know, circuses and the British traditions of the clown did go over to America, but it took a long while for them to kind of get established. It took till about the mid 1800s early 1900s for circuses to get into the full swing, but they did definitely come from British tradition of these theatre shows. But you couldn't really put theatres on in America. They kept burning down, first of all. I don't know why, but most of the early circus theatres of America just burnt down really quick. And you'll find the people running the circuses in America are more like businessmen rather than established theatre runners. They were more like con artists and in it for the money, investment bankers type people, And a lot of money was involved in early entertainment for America, as it always has been, because you use entertainment to keep the masses in line, So traveling circuses were big money, and they were the way that they kept people busy and distracted. It was the early bread and circus of the Roman thing. It's just the modern version. But if you find the development of early circuses in America specifically, because they weren't stationary, they had the tent, the big top tent, and it would go on the new railway systems that were being built at the time as well. And a lot of these new innovations were being made, and so they could travel all across America and put on huge traveling circus shows. And you'll find all of the circuses of America were all run by Freemasons, every last one of them. And they always call themselves brothers, like the Ringling Bros or the Robinson Bros or whatever. But bro is what you give yourself as a title if you're a member of the Brotherhood of Freemasonry. You are a brother. You are Brother Thompson or something, or you're Brother Dibdin. You are a brother if you're a member of the craft. So that's what they were hinting at with all these names, first of all. But anyway, during this period of time, the late 1800s, they all joined together, 10 of them, all Freemason run, to put on one giant traveling spectacular. And it was called, we're talking like 1,000-man army here of actors and troops and performers, all run by these Freemason orchestras of the rituals, And it was called King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Now, if I can get this up, actually, King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba Circus. And here's the posters that were knocking about at the time. And it was trying to recreate Solomon's court in all its spectacular glory, and here's a newspaper clipping of the time. And it shows here, 10 truly great shows merged into one huge, 3 big circus rings, 3 menageries of animals, grand biblical spectacle, complete aviary, gigantic musician. They were just going all out with this King Solomon story. And you realize that's because the Freemasons are obsessed with Solomon. They love that guy. He is like the bro, the idol. They want to be him because Freemasonry, Solomon's temple, they're all about rebuilding Solomon's temple.
They believe
it's
in
what all the symbolism is equating to with the 2 pillars. Yeah, and all the esoteric. He was the keeper of all the knowledge and all these type of things. He had the ring which controlled the demons to build his temple. Okay, he was the ringmaster. Solomon is the ringleader. Okay, he is the guy with the power of the ring to control the ritual and the demons. He's the Lord of the Ring. Yes, and a lot of people don't realize this, but Freemason, worshipful Grand Master. The worshipful Grand Master of any lodge is the only one allowed to wear a black top hat or a hat of any kind.
Right.
Okay. It's regional. It changes slightly, but nobody else is allowed to wear that top hat other than the leader of the lodge. And why? It represents the crown of Solomon. Okay. Only the king can wear a crown. It's symbolic. Okay. And then you realize that all these Freemasons run all these circuses, and then you have the ring master of a circus. He is just a worshipful Grand Master of a lodge. He's an analogy of the leader of a lodge.
Right.
He's the same thing. He is King Solomon. Okay, so the ringleader, the Lord of the Ring, is King Solomon of a circus. And what does King Solomon control to build his temple with the ring? Demons. What are the main components of a ringleader? And what does he control? He controls clowns. It's just a metaphor for lodge rituals and King Solomon analogues. All these early circuses were quite literally Freemason rituals, which were normally done in a small lodge, just on a really, really grand scale with the public paying for it to come and see it. And the public don't know what they're coming to see. But the initiated will go to these things and say, this is incredible. I normally see these rituals done on a tiny scale in my crappy little lodge in my backwater town.
Yeah.
But here I'm looking at this grand, enormous version of my ritual.
elephants.
just done on a huge scale. You know, it's spectacular, it's amazing, and that's what they were. That's, make no mistake, all circuses were fully formed and utilized by Freemasons from the very beginning. All Shriners today still control the biggest traveling circus in America. Okay, and it's the Ringling Brothers were all Freemasons, and the Sarasota Ringling Circus that's still around today, it's a Freemason-based organization from the very beginning. Okay, and they really took the clown on and adopted it and formed it to be more of the classic clown we see today. Okay, so they kept sculpting and molding the image of a clown. And if you look at early clown posters, if you get some good, they really lean into the giant iconography quite a lot. They always represent them as giants. Look at this one. This is quite literally a, can you see this one here?
Yeah.
It's quite literally a giant looming over everything, picking up a giraffe. You know, they're showing in tongue-in-cheek form the truth on the matter, you know.
So are they like the ancestor worship kind of thing? Is it the goal, or has this even been found out, that the goal of Freemasonry is to try to control demons like Solomon did to create something, or to build something, or to give them more power?
They communicate with demons for power, and also, you know, secret societies are just the modern day versions of these serpent worship cults of the past. They've always been in communication with these entities from the very beginning. Freemasons and secret societies are kind of like the physical foot soldiers, and they answer to the spiritual foot soldiers of the angels, which are the Nephilim. So they take orders from the Nephilim spirits take orders from their parents, which are the angels. It's like a hierarchy here, you know. And in order to create stronger channels and communicate with them more easily, they've created their own version of an ancestor spirit channeling costume, and they called it a clown, but they made it public. They made it out in the open. It's hidden in plain sight. And this is where exoteric and esoteric comes into play. Now, it's an exoteric image. So exoterically, the public just see it as a bit of fun for the kids.
Right.
Esoterically, the hidden meaning, which the initiated will know, is it's a costume used as a tool to channel demons. So publicly, it's fun for the kids. Secretly, it's a tool used to channel demons. Do you get what I mean? That's how the occult works. That's the practices they are at play here. And like I said, they've been hinting at this since the very beginning. Here it is with its tongue sticking out, just like the Rakshasa demons. You know, it's the same thing. And I actually have a thumbnail I made that perfectly encapsulates this, actually, which I think I'm just going to have to show you just to really drive home this point. And while I'm explaining this as well, the three-ring circus was actually created by someone called Barnum, P.T. Barnum, Phineas Barnum, and he was a member of the Oddfellows. And the Oddfellows logo is 3 interlocking rings, so he incorporated that into the circus as well.
Wow.
It's all Freemason iconography. But if I go to the thumbnails here, let's just go to my series, clown series, and where is it? Of course, they're not in any order I need them to be in right now.
You got it.
And here they are all side by side once it comes up, showing here's the dragons of China, here's the Rakshasas of India, here's the clown from those early circuses. They just copied these beasts and made their own version of it. Okay, that's all it is. And the game now is to get as many channels open as possible. So they're actually encouraging more and more people and members of the public to dress like clowns. And they do that through constantly cycling through new versions of the Joker, or recycling it, for example, every so often. So every Halloween, there's more costumes that people can wear and channel more of these demons unknowingly. Being ignorant of the law does not make you immune to this law, unfortunately. Right. And optimally, a demon wants to possess you without you even realizing it. That's the best way to do it. They don't want you to know that's what you've done. Okay, because if you know, you can cast them out. So it's best to stay hidden, especially in the West, which is a highly Christianized nation. They're not so hidden in all these other countries because they're not Christian. They're not worried about being cast out in the name of Jesus or anything like that. So they're quite open and brash. But in the West, it's sneakier. It's more hidden. It's in the shadows. You're not supposed to know what's going on. You know what I mean? That's the game at play here. So yeah, I don't know if I can make it any more clear what's going on here, but wherever you see cultures and movements happen, like for example, 2023 clown fashion was the highest trending thing.
Right.
Clowncore, clowncore
Encore,
fashion.
yeah. I've heard of that.
And you see a lot of TikTokers out there wearing this new aesthetic, as they call it, and
Right.
popularizing it among the youth as a legitimate way to dress in day-to-day basis, walking around down the streets, perfectly normal. Get the clowncore aesthetic now, buy all these things and you're good to go for the day. But this is obviously inspired by real legitimate catwalks and runways. Clowncore fashion trend of 2023. Actual models are walking down catwalks promoting this concept, this fashion style, this dress. And then eventually this extreme form trickles down into a more watered down version in the outlets, which we buy our normal clothes from, that we have to wear. They're getting more and more people to dress this way and accept it as normal because it will open up more channels. More people are dressing just like these ancient cultures have been doing for thousands of years to purposely get in touch with their own ancestor spirits. They're just opening up more and more channels for us to be possessed without us even realizing it. It's very subtle and very outrageous. I know what it sounds like, but spiritually speaking, this all adds up.
Yeah,
We have to be careful.
I've said this a couple times on the show for a variety of different reasons, but I say people will go to hell. People will ride to hell on a highway of cuteness. And that means this type of aesthetic, it's cute. It's just cute. It's fun. It's cute. But you don't know where this is leading you really when you see things like this. There's a darker, it always seems like there's some weird, dark, maybe even sexual fetishized weird thing about it, or the sad clown. There's always a weird depression or some type of dark cloud over this type of thing. And I see the reality behind the veil. I'll say that. I see everything that you're saying. I can see it. You know what I'm saying?
It's right there in your face. It always has been. And anyone who wants to argue, the clown's just a harmless bit of fun, to get over it. I have quite literally just shown you that the origin of a Western clown costume is literally modeled after demons of India and Europe. There is no other way to interpret it. You're just applying your own cultural naivety on top of the image of a clown. Historically speaking, it is a representation of a demon. That is where it comes from. There's no way around it, unfortunately. So to dress like a thing is to channel the thing. This is what all ancestor spirit culture worships know thoroughly. They know it thoroughly, there's no, when this guy dresses this way, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He knows exactly why he is doing this. I want the spirits to come into me.
Right.
He will tell you that, Same thing when the Theym,
we're held ignorant to it. We're held.
Yeah, when the Theym do this, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But when we do it, we're ignorant. We think it's just a bit of fun for the kids. We've been duped. We've been fooled. It's been normalized.
It's almost worse. I mean, I don't know which one's darker, to just accept it, that's their ancestor. They feel that's the ancestor, or to not even know it, to just feel like this is just a normal societal entertainment that we take pleasure in.
I think it's worse to be naive to the whole thing, in a way. Because we don't even know what we're up against. We're in a worse position because we don't even realize we've even been deceived to begin with. At least these ancestor spirit culture worship people, when they hear the gospel come and heard that Jesus cast out evil spirits, they can have a context to understand exactly why that's important.
Right.
Because they've been communicating with these demons openly for years. And it's like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We can have power over them.
Yeah.
They've never heard that before. They're blown away by that concept, which is why it's so easy to convert people to Christianity in these places. Because they have dealt with these creatures openly in brutal forms, sacrificing to them for so long. It's a breath of fresh air when some culture comes along and says, no, these things are weak and they are defeated and you can have authority over them. They're like, what? But we don't even believe a spirit realm exists.
Yeah.
We don't even know, Look at these clown-looking things in Australia. These are the Wanginas. These are the offspring of the rainbow serpents. They are quite literally dressed like a clown.
Right.
This, where we get our clown from is modeled after these things. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is and how real this is. I mean, did you see earlier the demon face syndrome thing that was going around?
People are seeing this, right? They're seeing demon faces.
Yeah, well, they look like clowns. That's
Yeah,
what the black-ringed, wide-eyed features. This is what they're beginning to see, you know, when you see the demon within people. I'm not saying people are demons with a mask on.
Right.
I think you're seeing the demon in people that's trying to control them. And you see it manifest through their features, you know, and that's where you get these things from. I mean, I have thousands of images here, you know, that I've showcased on my channel way better than I have done today, you know, but I'm not just making this up. I think a lot of people don't really, they think I'm just saying stuff for clout or something. Or I'm trolling in some way. I'm deadly serious. Like these are AI images, all right, but the Nephilim looks something like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jeez.
That's a human dragon hybrid with white pale skin, psychedelic patterns and features, fiery wild red hair, glowing blue wild eyes, sharp serpentine teeth with human pink lips. This is what you get when you mash those things together. It's terrifying. Okay, this is Venom, isn't it?
Terrifying.
From the Spider-Man universe.
Right,
you know?
right.
It's the same thing, you know, and every culture would have their own artistic way of depicting it. Here's a Japanese-inspired AI rendition, you know, but they would all have their own way of doing it, and every culture down the line has maintained this. But then in the music industry, here's Bono utilizing the same tactic and trick. He's not just doing this because he's a bit weird. He's doing something that has been done for thousands of years. Okay, he's doing the same thing. He is channeling just as much as this guy is right here with his red nose. You know, it's the same process. It's so nefarious. I mean, look at these Wangina looking things.
Yeah.
This has no business being in a random remote rock art cave in the middle of the Kimberley region of the deserts of Australia.
And this is thousands of years ago? Is this
yeah, these things are painted onto caves in the Kimberley regions, and they've been repainted every year by a shaman and only a shaman is allowed to do it every year to keep them fresh. And I'm trying to find a really good example because I know there's loads of examples of these. But I know I've got one where I've put the side by side with a clown, and it's just uncanny, like the difference. Oh, first of all, here's Medusa, by the way. Again,
red
it's
hair.
not a snake-haired green woman. It's a red-haired, white-skinned, tongue-sticking gal, Rakshasa.
Crazy.
But this is in Greece.
Crazy.
This is in Greece, you know, and the story of how this thing got made. Echidna, which is a human turned into a siren, snake woman, so a woman who's been hybridized, or a human woman who's been changed, having sex with a sea god who's a fallen angel. Okay. Wow. And that's where we call Typhon, and that's where we get Gorgons from, which are these Nephilim creatures, which are human. And they don't look like snake people. They had arms and legs like this on pottery. Okay. They look like clowns. And you saw the one that was on Athena's chest earlier. Quite literally a clown, you know. But even on the Aztec calendar, right in the center, you have the tongue sticking out thing.
Have you ever heard of there's a thing called Ahiago face. Now, I don't necessarily think you should search it right now while you have the thing up, but because it's very it's sexual in nature, and I think maybe porn categories may use it. But
with the tongue sticking out.
It's a girl sticking out their tongue while crossing their eyes. I believe it's Japanese inspired or something, but it's become a thing. They stick their tongue out and they roll their eyes when they're like at they could be at, you know, a concert or something. You know, a lot of people, Kiss used to do the stick out the tongue thing back in the day, but it's a very weird, like, why are y'all doing this? It's that type of face. It literally is.
Yeah, well, there's a famous saying in the Bible, and it's literally saying, "To whom do you stick out your tongue? Like, why are you doing this?" Basically, like, what spirits working through you to make you do this? You know.
Yeah.
And when people just involuntarily stick their tongue out, you have to wonder if it's these spirits working through them. So here's Medusa, a giant holding a horse in her arms with wings and arms like a human, but with this dragon face.
Crazy.
You know, and that's the Gorgons of Greece, but that's a Rakshasa of India. It's the same. It's the exact same thing. You know what I mean? And it's the same creature. They all dealt with the Nephilim, no matter where you went in some way. And every culture just has their own artistic way of depicting them, their own unique style. You know, here's some elongated skulls, by the way, which I was talking about earlier that were found.
Yeah.
And they were very psychedelically colorful, weird looking creatures, you know. And let me find. I've got to show you this. I just have to show you this comparison for the Wangina because it's just uncanny. Sorry, this is just going back to Sri Lanka again. One of the versions. It's just another clown, isn't it? By that standard,
kind of has the wild man feature a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you find that they kind of blend as you go across the lands of the earth. Some of them are hairy, some of them are not. I can think there was wild variation. I do.
On that one, where, go down a little bit. The Ronald McDonald and the Wangina, or the.
There it is. Yeah, there we go. So there's the Wangina on a rock art painting in Kimberley.
That is, I mean, and when you think of the things that do this, right? Like, for instance, McDonald's, you know, like this type of the food's bad for you. I mean, that's what we know it as here. I mean, the food is not good for you. It's poisoning you possibly, right? The movie It is meant to scare you to death about, you know, they're eating children or whatever. It usually always ties back to some darkness behind it, and it's very weird. Very weird, man. Paul, man, you really showed up today, man. I really appreciate it. I've been following you for a while over at your channel, Understanding Conspiracy, and you have amazing videos. And y'all that are watching here today, if you haven't checked out his channel, please do. Understanding Conspiracies. You have a book coming out on this, which I'm happy to hear, man. This is a lot of information, great information that you put together. When is it coming out? What's up with that?
So the book is in two parts because it's a lot of information, like you said. The first book is called The History, and it's everything I've explained as where the Nephilim come from, all the rebellion I talked about, you know, and the intricacies of the back and forth that happened there that could have resulted in the Nephilim gaining their features, and also how did they survive the flood exactly. It talks about the flood and what happened during that. It talks about the hybridization of humans just before the flood, which we didn't even touch on today, but as a whole other thing. And then it goes on to explain the whole history of Freemasonry, of clowning, and where we get the costumes from, as I showed you briefly here, but I just go into more detail and give the dates and the times and all the quotes from the memoirs and all those type of things. It's all in the book there. And then after that, I've talked about that specific history, and I give a full breakdown of the clown as a caricature and explain why each feature of a clown is specifically a reference to Nephilim features. For example, here you can see behind me, there's a slit just below the pupil of that clown. And that's a predator feature. Predators have slit pupils. And the Nephilim likely had that from their reptilian fathers too. So it's it's stuff like all little stuff like that, you know. I flesh it out and I give the details. And then after those chapters are finished, I do a full study on clown societies and how there are plenty of practices out there that still today dress this way to channel spirits. And that's a precursor to section 2, because the book 2 is going to be all about these cultures I've shown you, breaking each culture down. Okay, so that's book 2. That's going to be called The Now, which is all the modern stuff. So book 1, which is about to be published, finishes with DMT jesters, people on psychedelics communicating with these spirits, and they look like jesters and all that sort of stuff. And once that's boxed off, that's the basis set for the whole theory. Then book 2, which will be published in a year's time, which will be combined together into one book once they're both finished as well. So you can buy that too. But that'll all be about the cultures and all the different individual cultures and the way they dress. And then section 2 of the second book will be about film industry, music industry, the clowns, serial killers and murderers, all these type of things, the fear of clowns, you know, real modern manifestations in the West, that sort of thing. And that'll be the 2 books done. But the first volume is going to be published in 2 months.
Nice. Congratulations, man. I'm definitely going to be ordering the book, both books, the omnibus, all of it. I'm down, and I think a lot of people are going to be interested in this, especially if you're listening. If you're trying to listen, because I'm a person that was never, I don't want to say never. I grew up in the church, okay, when I was younger or whatever, and then, you know, as you get older, you go to school, you start thinking more independently. You know, you start thinking about different things, kind of get away for where you stop believing in. Like, I had an argument with a girlfriend one time, an ex of mine, saying, she said she didn't really believe in God, and that threw me back one time. And I was like, huh? How do you not believe in God? And I was like, she said she believes in ghosts. I was like, wait, you believe in ghosts, but you don't believe in God? And I was like, I don't believe in ghosts really, but I believe in God. You know what I mean? And that I had to ask myself, well, wait a minute. If I'm only looking at, especially for my show or whatever, conspiracies of, science of the aliens are landing here, or AI, or all this other stuff, there has to be something to the spiritual realm too. It's not like, I mean, if we're looking for truth, we have to be able to go back and see what the people furthest back, closer to the time of creation, we're saying. And the closest thing we have to that is the Bible. We have these other things, and a lot of cultural, theology, histories have similar attributes. Everyone says the flood happens. Everyone, talks about, especially if you're part of the Judeo-Christian, that side of the Abrahamic religions, we all share similarities, and it's telling us in these texts that things happen before us that might explain UFOs, cults, all these different things that, I think we need to take a deeper dive into, and you're doing that, and that makes me excited, man. So I appreciate you, Paul. Thank you, man. Do you have any last words you want to say? Or?
No, if anyone wants to find more, there's a whole series on my channel, Understanding Conspiracy. Just click on playlists, click on Nephilim Look Like Clowns. 43 episodes there. Go into my live shows, and I've talked about these things on many podcasts in many details, and I have loads of extra stuff on my channel about this. Again, you can always just go to the book once published in a couple of months' time as well, and keep track of that. But I want people to realize I talk about plenty of other things on my channel. I think you're aware of that. I'm a scattershot conspiracy theorist at heart. This just happens to be a particular niche I'm focusing on right now that I've kind of uncovered. But I'm first and foremost a Christian contrarian conspiracy theorist. That's what I am. And my message fundamentally might be a scary one for a lot of people. But what I'm actually trying to say is, these are a defeated enemy, and we have authority over them in Christ. It's a know your enemy situation. That's why I'm doing this. You need to know what they look like. You need to understand it when you recognize it, when you can see it. And I have solutions, and it's getting to know Jesus Christ and taking your power in his authority over these things. I don't think there's a single human being alive who has not had a demonic encounter. They just may not talk about it. They may keep it suppressed. We've all dealt with these things, and all will continue to deal with these things. And there are solutions. So my channel offers those solutions. Come check it out. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. I really do.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Hopefully have you back to talk about Millennial Kingdom too another time. Let's get into
it. Maybe. Sure thing. All
right, brother. Take care.
You too. Bye now.
Right, bye. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed that. That's it for tonight, man. It's late. I saw a lot of conversation going on in the chat. Y'all niggas going back and forth. But, it's okay. We do a little something different, man. It's Mayhem Hour. We're going to conspiracies. We're going into all the, the crazy lady stuff too. But it's good to hear something different. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all next week. Comedy Trap House. Stay tuned. We in season 7. Let's go.